What if Harry stumbled into the Forbidden Forest at age 9 and was raised by Acromantulas? Chapter 1, The Boy in the Web. 9-year-old Harry Potter pressed his face against the school bus window, watching trees blur past as they drove farther from Little Whinging than he'd ever been. His oversized hand-me-down shirt hung off his small frame, and he kept pushing his taped glasses up his nose. For once, Dudley sat far away, too busy showing off his new electronic game to his friends to bother Harry. "All right, children, we're almost at Blackwood Nature Reserve," Ms. Pearson announced. "Remember to stay with your assigned buddy and don't wander off from the group." Harry slumped in his seat. His buddy was Piers Polkiss, one of Dudley's gang who enjoyed holding kids' arms behind their backs while Dudley punched them. Harry had already decided he'd try to slip away first chance he got. The bus lurched to a stop in a gravel car park surrounded by dense trees. Kids scrambled off the bus in excitement, but Harry hung back, waiting until the chaos subsided. The forest loomed before them, ancient and vast. Something about it made Harry's skin prickle with a strange energy he couldn't explain. Ms. Pearson gathered the class, handing out activity sheets. "We'll be identifying different types of leaves and birds today. Stay on the marked paths, and no one goes past the wooden fences. Those areas haven't been cleared for public access." Piers roughly grabbed Harry's shoulder. "You're with me, Potter. Don't even think about running off." "Wouldn't dream of it," Harry muttered. The class moved into the woods along a well-maintained trail. Harry lagged at the back, Piers periodically shoving him or stepping on his heels. After 20 minutes of walking, they reached a small clearing where the teacher began explaining different types of oak trees. Harry noticed Dudley nudging Piers and pointing at him with a nasty grin. He recognized that look. They were planning something. Sure enough, as Ms. Pearson led the group deeper into the forest, Dudley stuck out his foot. Harry, anticipating this, jumped over it, but crashed straight into Piers, who shoved him hard off the path and down a steep embankment. Harry tumbled through underbrush, his glasses flying off his face. He hit the ground with a thud, the wind knocked out of him. Above, he heard Dudley and Piers laughing before their voices joined the retreating class. "Great," Harry mumbled, feeling around blindly for his glasses. His fingers closed around them, the frames were bent but at least the lenses weren't cracked. He shoved them onto his face and looked around. The forest here was different, darker, older. The trees stood closer together, their branches twisting overhead to block most of the sunlight. No marked path was visible. Harry climbed back up toward where he'd fallen, but the embankment was steeper than he'd realized. "Hello?" he called out. "Ms. Pearson? Anyone?" Only the rustling leaves answered him. Harry took a deep breath. The Dursleys would be thrilled if he disappeared forever. The thought was both terrifying and oddly freeing. "I'll just follow the sun," he decided, looking up to catch glimpses of light through the canopy. West is back to the car park. Harry trudged through the forest, pushing through ferns and stepping over fallen logs. The forest grew stranger with each step, the trees more gnarled, the undergrowth thicker. Birds fell silent, and the air grew heavy with an unfamiliar scent, earthy and ancient. After an hour of walking, Harry realized he was hopelessly lost. The sun had disappeared behind clouds, and the forest had grown so dense he couldn't tell which direction he was heading. Panic began to rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. Panicking never helped anything. "Someone will find me," he told himself, though he wasn't sure if anyone was even looking. The Dursleys would probably tell the school he'd run away on purpose. A snapping twig made Harry freeze. Something was moving through the underbrush nearby, something big. Harry ducked behind a fallen tree, peering over cautiously. Through the ferns emerged the strangest man Harry had ever seen. Twice as tall as a normal man and 3 times as wide, with a wild tangle of hair and beard. He was talking to himself as he checked various plants. "Bloomin' ministry officials, tellin' me how to do my job, don't know the first thing about the forest creatures." Harry leaned forward to get a better look, and the branch under his foot snapped loudly. The giant man whirled around. Who's there? Show yourself. Harry hesitated, then slowly stood up. The giant man's eyes widened in shock. Blimey. What are you doing in here, boy? This ain't no place for children. The man stomped toward Harry, who backed away nervously. How'd ya get past the boundary charms? Be boundary charms? Harry stammered. I fell off the path. My class is on a field trip to Blackwood Reserve. The giant man's bushy eyebrows shot up. Blackwood? That's 5 miles west here. You're in the Forbidden Forest now, boy, dangerous place. I'm lost, Harry admitted. Could you help me get back? The man scratched his beard. Course I will. Can't have a muggle child wandering round here. Name's Rubius Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. I'm Harry. Harry Potter. Hagrid's mouth fell open. Harry Potter. The Harry Potter. His eyes darted to Harry's forehead where his fringe didn't quite cover his lightning scar. Merlin's beard. But, yeah, can't be, you're supposed to be safe with your relatives. You know me? Harry asked, bewildered. Before Hagrid could answer, a low rustling sound came from all around them. Hagrid's expression changed from shock to alarm. We need to move. Now. Hagrid grabbed Harry's arm. They're coming, Dot. Who's coming? Acromantulas. Giant spiders. Territory starts here. Usually don't come out in daylight, but, a massive hairy leg, thick as Harry's torso, appeared over a log. Then another. And another. Harry gasped as the largest spider he'd ever seen emerged into view. The size of a small car, with 8 gleaming black eyes fixed on them. More spiders appeared behind it, surrounding them in seconds. Aragog, Hagrid said tensely. It's me, Hagrid. The enormous spider clicked its pincers. Hagrid. You bring human child into our territory? Didn't bring him, found him. Got lost from some muggle school trip. I'm taking him back now. The colony is hungry, another spider said, moving forward. This one was slightly smaller but still massive, with a distinctly feminine quality to her voice. We have many mouths to feed. Harry trembled but found his voice. Please don't eat me. I didn't mean to trespass. All 8 of Aragog's eyes swiveled to focus on Harry. It speaks to us directly. Interesting. Course he speaks. He's just a boy. Hagrid protested, positioning himself between Harry and the spiders. Harry stepped out from behind Hagrid, heart pounding. I respect your territory. I won't come back without permission. The female spider moved closer, her pincers clicking rapidly. The small one shows unusual courage. And. She paused, studying Harry intensely. There is magic in this one, Aragog. Old magic. Aragog clicked his pincers thoughtfully. Yes. I sense it too, Mozag. Harry felt a strange tingling sensation as the spiders focused on him. His scar prickled uncomfortably. This is Harry Potter, Hagrid said reluctantly. The boy who lived. The reaction was immediate. The entire colony began clicking and hissing, moving restlessly. The one who defeated the Dark Lord? Aragog asked. As an infant? Harry looked confused. Dark Lord? I didn't defeat anyone. I'm just Harry. Mozag moved even closer, her massive form towering over Harry. You do not know your own story, small one. No one tells me anything, Harry replied honestly. Aragog and Mozag seemed to communicate silently, their pincers moving in subtle patterns. The boy stays with us, Aragog finally announced. What? Hagrid bellowed. Yeah, can't be serious. Dumbledore's been protecting him, not protecting well enough, Mozag interrupted. Look at the child, Hagrid. Thin. Wearing clothes too large. Glasses broken and repaired poorly. This is not a treasured young one. Harry stared at the massive spider in shock. How could she see so clearly what adults had missed for years? Hagrid looked stricken, really examining Harry for the first time. But still, can't just take him. We aren't taking him, Aragog said. We're offering him sanctuary. The choice is his. All eyes turned to Harry, who couldn't believe what was happening. Giant talking spiders were offering him a home. Would you? Harry hesitated. Would you teach me about magic and this world Hagrid mentioned? We know different magic than humans, Mozag explained. Ancient ways. Web magic. But yes, we would teach you. And I wouldn't be a burden. Or, food later. Aragog's laughter was a strange clicking sound. We do not eat our young, Harry Potter. If you join our colony, you become family. Family. The word hit Harry like a physical blow. He'd never had a real family. The wizarding world will look for ya, Hagrid warned, though his voice had softened. You're famous, Harry. Important. No one's looked for me before, Harry said quietly. My aunt and uncle would probably be happy if I disappeared. Hagrid's face darkened with anger. That ain't right. Dumbledore said yet be safe there, cared for. I sleep in a cupboard under the stairs, Harry said flatly. They call me freak. I cook their breakfast and clean their house. Dudley beats me up, and they tell everyone I'm disturbed and dangerous. With each word, Hagrid's expression grew more horrified, and the clicking of the spiders more agitated. This is decided, Mozag declared. The boy needs protection. We will provide it. I'll stay, Harry said, surprising himself with how right it felt. At least for a while. I want to learn. Hagrid sighed heavily. I can't stop there's too many of them. But I'll be visitin', making sure you're alright. And I'll have words with Dumbledore about them Dursleys. You won't tell anyone where I am? Harry asked anxiously. Hagrid looked conflicted. I'll tell Dumbledore Yerry's safe but that ya need time. Won't say exactly where unless you're in danger. Thank you, Hagrid, Harry said sincerely. Mozag extended one hairy leg toward Harry. Come, small one. We will show you your new home. Harry hesitated, then reached out and touched the offered limb. It was surprisingly warm and not slimy as he'd expected. The tingling sensation he'd felt earlier intensified at the contact. Blimey, Hagrid whispered, watching in amazement. Never seen Aragog's family take to a human like this. I'll be okay, Harry assured him, feeling strangely confident. I think I'm supposed to be here. Hagrid nodded reluctantly. I'll come back tomorrow. Bring some supplies. Harry followed Mozag deeper into the forest, surrounded by dozens of giant spiders. Strangely, his fear had vanished, replaced by a sense of wonder and belonging he'd never experienced before. The Acromantula colony lived in a massive hollow deep in the forest's heart. Webs stretched between ancient trees, creating platforms, bridges, and chambers. Smaller spiders, though still the size of large dogs, scurried about on various tasks. The hollow buzzed with activity and a complex language of clicks and hisses. This is our nursery, Mozag explained, leading Harry to an area where egg sacs the size of beach balls hung from thick webbing. Our young are vulnerable. We protect them fiercely. Harry noticed smaller spiders, about the size of dinner plates, emerging from some sacs. They're babies? He asked, fascinated rather than frightened. Yes. Just hatched this moon cycle. One tiny spider, tiny for an acromantula, anyway, dropped down on a silk strand near Harry's face. Instead of recoiling, Harry carefully extended his hand. The spiderling landed on his palm, examining him with curious eyes. Hello, Harry whispered. The spiderling clicked its tiny pincers in response, sending a strange vibration through Harry's hand. It likes you, Mozag observed. Unusual. Our young fear humans instinctively. I'm not scary, Harry said with a small smile. Perhaps that is why Aragog sensed you should stay. You do not carry the fear and hatred most humans bear toward our kind. Harry spent the rest of the day exploring the colony with Mozag, learning about their social structure and daily life. Aragog ruled as patriarch, with Mozag as his mate and co-leader. Their children numbered in the hundreds, from tiny spiderlings to car-sized adults. As darkness fell, Harry realized he had no idea where he would sleep in this web-filled world. Mozag led him to a small hollow in an ancient oak tree at the colony's center. We have prepared this for you, she explained. Hagrid often leaves things here, supplies, items he thinks we might find useful. The space should suit your human needs. The hollow was larger inside than it appeared, with a surprisingly comfortable floor covered in dried moss and leaves. Harry curled up, exhausted from the day's events but strangely content. Sleep well, small one, Mozag said. Tomorrow, you begin to learn our ways. Sleep came quickly, and for once, Harry's dreams weren't filled with green light and screaming. Instead, he dreamed of flying through webs under a star-filled sky. Harry woke to sunlight filtering through the entrance of his tree hollow. For a moment, he thought he was back in his cupboard at the Dursleys, but the earthy smell and soft rustling sounds quickly reminded him where he was. He'd spent the night in an Acromantula colony. Good morning, a small voice clicked near his head. Harry turned to see the spiderling from yesterday perched on a root near his makeshift bed. In daylight, he could see it had bluish markings along its back. Morning, Harry replied, surprised he could understand the clicking language better today. Do you have a name? Arachnia, the spiderling clicked. Mother sent me to watch over you. I'm Harry, he said, sitting up. Thanks for watching over me. You're strange for a human, Arachnia observed, tilting her head. Not screaming or trying to squish me. Harry laughed. I'd need a very big shoe to squish an Acromantula. Besides, you've all been kind to me. Hagrid came while you slept, she informed him, pointing with one leg to a bundle in the corner. Brought human things. Harry crawled over to find a backpack stuffed with clothes, a water bottle, some sandwiches wrapped in paper, a flashlight and a small pocket knife. A note in messy handwriting read, Harry, still think this is mad, but I'll help how I can. Visit the edge of the hollow at noon tomorrow. Need to talk. Hagrid, that was nice of him, Harry said, changing into a clean shirt that still hung off his skinny frame but was better than Dudley's old one. Arachnia led Harry out into the colony, where activity was already buzzing. Acromantulas of various sizes moved along web highways, carrying food, repairing structures, and communicating in rapid clicks. Several stopped to stare at Harry, but none seemed hostile. Aragog was waiting at the center of the hollow, his massive form easily recognizable among his children. Harry Potter, he greeted, pincers moving. You survived your first night. It was the best sleep I've had in ages, Harry admitted. Thank you for taking me in. Today you begin learning colony ways, Aragog declared. First, you must understand how we communicate. For the next several hours, Harry practiced the clicking language of the Acromantulas. His mouth couldn't form the sounds exactly, but he found that by concentrating hard, he could produce vibrations in the air that the spiders understood. You learn quickly, Mozag observed, joining them later. Most humans cannot grasp our speech at all. It feels natural somehow, Harry said. Like I already knew it but forgot. Magic, Aragog clicked thoughtfully. Your magic adapts. Harry felt a surge of excitement. Can you teach me about magic? Hagrid mentioned it, but I don't know anything about it. Our magic differs from wizard magic, Mozag explained. We weave spells through silk and vibration. But we sense great potential in you, unusual for a human so young. Try, Aragog instructed, pushing a strand of web toward Harry. Focus on the strand. Feel its energy. Harry took the silky strand between his fingers. At first, he felt nothing but the smooth texture. Then, closing his eyes and concentrating, he began to sense something, a subtle hum, a vibration too fine for normal hearing. I feel something, he whispered. Like singing, but with no sound. Good, Aragog clicked approvingly. Now push your own energy into it. Imagine the strand extending, growing. Harry focused harder, imagining his own energy, whatever that was, flowing from his fingers into the web strand. To his amazement, the strand began to glow faintly, and new silk emerged from where he held it, extending the web. I did it! Harry exclaimed as the silk grew another foot in length. Aragog and Mozag exchanged looks of surprise. Extraordinary, Mozag clicked. No human has ever worked web magic before. Is that unusual? Harry asked. Very, Aragog confirmed. Your magic is adaptive. Different. Harry practiced with the web strand until exhaustion forced him to stop. By then, he could extend the silk at will and even change its thickness slightly. That afternoon, Arachnia and some of the younger Acromantulas taught Harry how to move through the colony's web highways. Unable to produce his own silk, Harry relied on the existing structures, learning to test web strength before trusting his weight to it. He fell several times, though the spiders always caught him before he hit the ground. By evening, he could navigate the main pathways without help, swinging and climbing with growing confidence. Not bad for a two-legs, an adolescent spider named Taraxis clicked approvingly after Harry successfully crossed a particularly challenging web bridge. The days that followed fell into a pattern. Mornings were spent with Aragog or Mozag, learning the colony's history, practices, and basic web magic. Harry discovered the Acromantulas had a rich oral tradition, with stories stretching back centuries. They spoke of their homeland in the distant jungles, of their persecution by humans, and of Hagrid saving Aragog as a baby. Afternoons were for practical skills, hunting, though Harry couldn't eat raw meat like the spiders, web navigation, and forest survival. Evenings were for stories and rest. Harry found himself growing stronger, more agile, and more confident with each passing day. True to his word, Hagrid visited regularly, bringing supplies and news from the outside world. 1 month after Harry's arrival, Hagrid seemed particularly agitated. Dumbledore's goin' mad tryin' to find ya, he informed Harry as they sat at the edge of the colony's territory. Ministry's involved now too. Your relatives didn't even report ya missin' for 3 days. Let them look, Harry said, munching on a sandwich. I'm happy here. Hagrid studied the boy with concern. Harry had changed in the weeks since he'd joined the colony. He moved differently, more fluid and alert. His eyes seemed to catch every movement, and he often cocked his head listening to sounds Hagrid couldn't hear. Most strikingly, his magic had begun manifesting in visible ways. Even now, as they talked, small strands of energy like glowing web filaments occasionally danced between Harry's fingers when he gestured. They think ya might be dead, Harry, Hagrid said gently. Or kidnapped. Might be time to let em know you're alright, at least. Harry considered this. I could write a letter. Just saying I'm safe and chose to leave because of how the Dursleys treated me. That might help, Hagrid agreed. Though they'll try to trace it. Let them try, Harry said confidently. The forest protects its own now. Hagrid looked startled at this statement. Yeah, sound like, never mind. Just remember you're a human boy, Harry. Much as the spiders have taken ya in. Harry tilted his head in the spider-like gesture he'd adopted. Am I just human, though? The magic I'm learning doesn't feel like what you described wizards doing. It's still wizard magic, just different, Hagrid insisted. Adaptable. Dumbledore would say you're shaping it based on what you're learning here. The conversation was interrupted by a rustling in the underbrush. Harry tensed immediately, dropping into a defensive crouch that looked decidedly inhuman. Aragog, Harry clicked in greeting before the massive spider emerged. Hagrid jumped despite his friendship with the Acromantula. Still don't know how ya do that, sensing them before they appear. I feel the web vibrations, Harry explained simply, as if it were obvious. Aragog clicked a greeting to Hagrid before turning to Harry. Time for evening gathering. The colony meets to discuss territory boundaries. I'll be right there, Harry promised. He turned back to Hagrid. I'll write that letter. You can bring it next time. Hagrid nodded, watching as Harry effortlessly scaled a tree and disappeared into the canopy alongside the giant spider. Blimey, he muttered to himself. Dumbledore ain't gonna believe this. By the time 3 months had passed, Harry had grown remarkably proficient in the ways of the colony. His web magic had strengthened to the point where he could sense disturbances anywhere in the colony's territory, feeling the vibrations through what Mozag called the Great Web, the interconnected network of silk and magic that linked all parts of the forest where the Acromantulas dwelled. One morning, Harry sat with Aragog in a high web platform, working on refining his control of web magic. Focus on the center thread, Aragog instructed. It connects to all others. Harry closed his eyes, reaching out with his senses to feel the intricate web structure surrounding them. With practice, he'd learned to visualize the entire web network, seeing it in his mind as glowing strands of energy. I see it, Harry murmured. Now, send your intention through it. Call Mozag to us without speaking. Harry concentrated on the central thread, imagining his magic flowing along it like water in a stream. He pictured Mozag, focusing on his connection to her, and pushed a gentle summons along the thread. Minutes later, Mozag appeared, climbing up from below. You called, young one, she clicked. Harry opened his eyes in delight. It worked. Your progress is remarkable, Aragog said with what Harry had learned to recognize as pride. You feel the web ways as one born to them. Could I? Harry hesitated, then continued, could I try something bigger? I've been practicing. Aragog's eyes gleamed with interest. Show us. Harry closed his eyes again, but this time reached deeper, feeling for the forest floor beneath them. Months ago, Mozag had explained that all living things were connected through threads invisible to most creatures, what wizards might call ley lines or natural magic. Drawing on this knowledge, Harry pushed his awareness down, into the earth, feeling the roots of the ancient trees, the small creatures moving through soil, the slow pulse of growth and decay. Then, gently, he called. The ground trembled slightly. From the forest floor, vines began to grow upward at an accelerated pace, twisting around tree trunks, reaching for the web platform where they sat. Within minutes, the vines had grown 30 feet upward, flowers blooming along them despite the forest's dim light. Harry opened his eyes, sweat beading on his forehead from the effort. I wanted to see if plant magic works the same way as web magic. Aragog and Mozag stared at the flowering vines in astonishment. This is not Acromantula magic, Mozag clicked softly. This is earth magic. Ancient wizard craft, long forgotten by most humans. Is that bad? Harry asked anxiously. No, young one, Aragog assured him. It means your magic grows in unexpected ways. You learn from us but develop your own path. Their conversation was interrupted by agitated clicking from below. A group of younger Acromantulas rushed up to the platform. Intruders, one clicked urgently. Humans with wands at the eastern boundary. Aragog rose immediately. How many? 4 adults. One is Hagrid. The others wear colorful robes. Harry felt a jolt of anxiety. They're looking for me. Yes, Aragog agreed. This day was inevitable. I won't go back, Harry said firmly. Not to the Dursleys. You need not fear, Mozag assured him. You are colony now. We protect our own. Harry followed Aragog and Mozag through the web highways toward the eastern boundary. Along the way, dozens of Acromantulas joined them, moving silently through the trees. Harry had learned to move just as quietly, placing his feet carefully and using the webs for balance. They stopped just within the tree line. Through the foliage, Harry could see Hagrid standing nervously with 3 other adults. One was an elderly man with a long white beard and half-moon spectacles, wearing purple robes. Another was a severe-looking woman in emerald green, her hair pulled back in a tight bun. The third was a sallow-faced man dressed entirely in black, looking thoroughly uncomfortable in the forest. "That's Dumbledore," Harry whispered to Aragog, recognizing the name from Hagrid's descriptions. "The headmaster of Hogwarts." "Yes," Aragog clicked. "A powerful wizard." "The others?" "Don't know," Harry admitted. "Teachers, probably." "Stay hidden until we determine their intentions," Mozag instructed. Aragog moved forward into the clearing. The reaction from the wizards was immediate. The woman gasped, the dark-haired man drew his wand, and Dumbledore merely raised an eyebrow in interest. "It's all right," Hagrid said quickly. "This is Aragog, the friend I told ya about." "Remarkable," Dumbledore said calmly. "I've heard much about you, Aragog, but never had the pleasure of a meeting." "You seek Harry Potter," Aragog stated directly, his pincers clicking. "Indeed we do," Dumbledore replied. "I am Albus Dumbledore. These are Professors McGonagall and Snape from Hogwarts School." "Why?" Aragog demanded. "I beg your pardon?" McGonagall asked, looking startled that a giant spider was questioning them. "Why do you seek him now? The boy lived in misery for years. None came then." Dumbledore's expression faltered slightly. "We had monitoring charms in place. They indicated Harry was safe." "Your charms failed," Aragog clicked angrily. "The boy was neglected, starved, abused." "That's a serious accusation," Snape said silkily. "Potter has always been prone to exaggeration and dramatics, like his father." Something about the man's tone made Harry's temper flare. Without thinking, he sent a pulse of magic through the web beneath his feet. A vine erupted from the ground next to Snape, wrapping around his ankle before he could react. The dark-haired professor let out a startled yelp, slashing his wand at the plant. "Harry," Mozag clicked in gentle reprimand. "Reveal yourself properly." Taking a deep breath, Harry stepped forward from the trees, moving to stand beside Aragog. He knew how he must look to them, wild-haired, dressed in Hagrid's oversized but clean clothes, moving with the careful precision he'd learned from the spiders. "Professor Dumbledore," he said, his voice steady. "I've heard a lot about you." Dumbledore's eyes widened as he took in Harry's appearance. "Harry, my boy. We've been very worried about you." "Now you worry," Harry replied coolly. "After 9 years with the Dursleys." McGonagall gasped. "Albus, his eyes." Harry knew what she meant. His already green eyes had developed an unusual quality over the past months, a faint luminescence visible in dim light, with pupils that sometimes narrowed to slits when he was using magic. A side effect of living among magical creatures, Dumbledore surmised. "Harry, we need to bring you back to Wizarding Society. You belong with your own kind." "I belong with those who care for me," Harry countered. "The colony is my family now." "This is absurd," Snape sneered. Living among monsters, 6 massive Acromantulas dropped from the trees overhead, surrounding the wizards. Harry hadn't called them, but the colony's protective instincts had been triggered by Snape's words. "Careful, Professor," Harry said quietly. "They don't like that word." "Harry," Dumbledore said gently. "You can't stay here forever. You're a wizard, you need proper magical education. Your parents would have wanted you to attend Hogwarts." "My parents," Harry repeated. "The ones who defeated some dark lord that no one bothered to tell me about. The ones whose sacrifice was rewarded by dumping me with people who hated magic." Hagrid looked uncomfortable. Harry, I should have told you more, I know. But Professor Dumbledore's right, you need proper training. Harry looked at the half-giant who'd been his only human friend for months. Hagrid, you of all people should understand. The colony accepts me for who I am. Has the wizarding world ever fully accepted you? Hagrid fell silent, unable to counter this point. Dumbledore sighed. Harry, I acknowledge mistakes were made. I truly believed you would be safest with your mother's blood relatives, protected by ancient magic. If your treatment there was as bad as you and Aragog suggest, then I have failed you terribly. The honesty in the old wizard's voice gave Harry pause. What exactly do you want from me? Harry asked. To ensure your well-being, McGonagall answered firmly. And yes, eventually, to prepare you for attendance at Hogwarts when you turn 11. I won't leave the colony, Harry stated. They're my family now. Perhaps, Dumbledore said thoughtfully, a compromise might be reached. He turned to Aragog. Would you permit us to visit Harry regularly? To teach him about his magical heritage while allowing him to remain here? Aragog's pincers clicked as he considered. The decision is Harry's. He is colony now, but also wizard. We do not imprison our young, we prepare them for their own path. All eyes turned to Harry, who felt the weight of the moment. He'd found acceptance and family with the Acromantulas, but a part of him was curious about the world his parents had belonged to. I'll agree to lessons, Harry said carefully. But I stay with the colony. And no one tries to take me back to the Dursleys. Ever. I give you my word, Dumbledore said solemnly. You will never return to Privet Drive against your will. And the colony's territory remains protected, Harry added. No wizard hunts here. That is within my power to arrange, Dumbledore agreed, looking impressed by Harry's negotiating. Mozag moved forward to stand beside Harry. The boy has flourished among us. His magic grows in ways you cannot teach. Do not try to change this. I wouldn't dream of it, Dumbledore replied, studying Harry with new interest. In fact, I believe Harry may be developing abilities long thought lost to wizardkind. As the details were arranged, Harry felt a strange mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. His life had changed dramatically in just a few months, from neglected orphan to colony member, and now to bridge between two worlds. That night, as the colony gathered for their evening meeting, Aragog addressed them all. Harry Potter has chosen a path between worlds, he announced. He remains colony, but will learn wizard ways as well. Will he leave us? Arachnia clicked anxiously from her perch near Harry's shoulder. My home is here, Harry assured her. I'll just be learning new things. Knowledge strengthens the colony, Mozag declared, settling the matter. Later, as Harry prepared for sleep in his tree hollow, now comfortable with furs Hagrid had brought and woven vine platforms he'd grown himself, Aragog visited him privately. You have chosen a difficult path, young one, the patriarch clicked softly. Between two worlds, belonging fully to neither. I know, Harry admitted. But it feels right. Like this is what I'm supposed to do. Your magic is unique, Aragog observed. Neither purely human nor creature. You bridge gaps long thought unbridgeable. Is that a good thing? It is a powerful thing, Aragog replied. Power brings challenge. But the colony stands with you, whatever comes. As Harry drifted off to sleep, he felt more content than he could ever remember. The Dursleys were behind him. Ahead lay a future of magic, learning, and family, unusual as that family might be. In the web of fate, Harry Potter's strand had taken an unexpected turn, weaving a pattern none could have predicted. The boy who lived had found his place among the most feared creatures of the forest, and in doing so, perhaps found himself as well. Chapter 2, Webs of Magic, Look Out Below. Harry shouted, leaping from one massive web to another 30 feet off the forest floor. At 11 years old, he moved through the Acromantula colony's web highways with effortless grace that even the younger spiders admired. His wild black hair had grown long, and he bound it back with strands of Acromantula silk that glowed faintly in the dim forest light. 2 years of living among the colony had changed Harry in ways no one could have predicted. He landed in a crouch on a thick web strand, perfectly balanced despite the way it bounced beneath him. "Show off," clicked Arachnia, who had grown from a dinner plate-sized spiderling to a respectable wolf-sized adolescent Acromantula. Her blue-patterned carapace gleamed as she scurried along a nearby strand. "Says the spider who can spin silk from her butt," Harry laughed, swinging under the strand and popping up on the other side. "Better than having to wear the same pair of pants for days," she retorted, referencing the constant battle Hagrid fought to keep Harry in clothes that fit his growing frame. Harry grinned and reached out with his senses, feeling the familiar vibrations of the colony's web network. In the 2 years since he'd joined the Acromantulas, his magical abilities had developed in extraordinary ways. He could now feel the presence of every spider in the colony, sense disturbances in their territory from miles away, and communicate through web vibrations almost as effectively as the spiders themselves. "Mozag is calling us," Harry said suddenly, feeling the distinct pattern of vibrations that meant the matriarch wanted him. "Race you there." He took off through the web network, using momentum and well-placed swings to propel himself forward. Arachnia clicked in mock outrage and scuttled after him, taking alternate routes through the canopy. Harry reached the central hollow first, dropping down to land lightly on a giant mushroom that had grown from the forest floor. "I win again," he announced as Arachnia descended moments later. "Only because I let you," she clicked, bumping him affectionately with one hairy leg. Mozag emerged from her chamber, her enormous form moving with surprising elegance for a spider the size of a small elephant. "Harry, Arachnia, good. You're needed." "What's up?" Harry asked, immediately detecting the tension in Mozag's posture. Living with Acromantulas had taught him to read their subtle body language. "A stranger approaches our territory," Mozag explained. "Not Hagrid. Different magic." Harry immediately extended his awareness through the web network, feeling for disturbances. About a half-mile from the colony's center, he sensed an unfamiliar presence moving with purpose. "I feel them," Harry confirmed. "One person. Walking confidently. They know where they're going." "Aragog has sent sentries," Mozag clicked. "But I want you to investigate as well. Your magic allows you to approach humans safely." Harry nodded seriously. Though he'd met regularly with Dumbledore and McGonagall over the past 2 years for lessons about wizarding culture and basic magic theory, unexpected visitors were rare and potentially dangerous. "I'll go with Harry," Arachnia declared. Her protective instincts toward Harry had only grown stronger as they'd aged together. Mozag clicked her approval. "Stay hidden, both of you. Observe only." Harry and Arachnia moved swiftly through the web network, heading toward the eastern boundary of the territory. As they got closer, Harry signaled for Arachnia to hang back slightly while he crept forward through the underbrush. From his concealed position, Harry spotted a stern-looking witch in emerald green robes, Professor McGonagall. She wasn't alone, though. Floating beside her was an envelope. "It's just McGonagall," Harry called softly to Arachnia. "She's brought something." Harry stepped out into a small clearing where McGonagall waited patiently. She didn't flinch at his sudden appearance, having grown somewhat accustomed to his forest ways over their periodic lessons. "Mr. Potter," she greeted him formally. "I've brought something important for you today." The envelope floated toward Harry. He plucked it from the air, examining the heavy parchment and emerald green ink. "Mr. H. Potter, the Acromantula Colony, Forbidden Forest, Hogwarts Grounds, my Hogwarts letter," Harry realized, a mixture of excitement and apprehension swirling in his stomach. "Indeed," McGonagall confirmed. "Though normally these are delivered by owl, your unique living situation required a personal touch." Harry broke the wax seal and pulled out the letter, reading quickly. He'd known this day was coming, Dumbledore and Hagrid had prepared him for it, but seeing the official invitation made everything suddenly real. "Term begins September 1st, McGonagall continued. Professor Dumbledore suggested that Hagrid accompany you to Diagon Alley next week to purchase your supplies. Harry looked up from the letter. And then what? I leave the colony. McGonagall's expression softened slightly. That's up to you, Mr. Potter. The headmaster has made arrangements for you to travel between Hogwarts and the forest on weekends if you wish. Though I must say, most students find they enjoy the castle enough to stay full-time. A rustling sound behind Harry announced Arachnea's approach. McGonagall tensed slightly but maintained her composure as the large spider emerged. Harry's not leaving us, Arachnia clicked defensively. She says I'm not leaving, Harry translated, though he knew McGonagall couldn't understand the spider language. That decision rests with Mr. Potter, McGonagall replied, addressing Arachnia directly with remarkable composure. But he needs proper magical education, something even his family here would agree with, I think. Harry considered this. The past 2 years of periodic lessons had given him a taste of formal magic, but he'd learned far more from the Acromantulas, web magic, plant manipulation, silent communication, skills that seemed to both fascinate and concern his wizard teachers. I'll go to Hogwarts, Harry decided. But I'll visit the colony regularly. This is still my home. Arachnia clicked her pincers anxiously but didn't protest further. Very well, McGonagall said with a nod. Hagrid will meet you at the edge of the forest next Tuesday morning. 9 o'clock sharp. After McGonagall left, Harry and Arachnia raced back to the colony's heart to share the news. The reaction was mixed, the younger spiders dismayed, the older ones thoughtful. It is time, Aragog pronounced from his silk throne in the central hollow. You have learned our ways. Now you must learn the ways of your own kind. But I'll come back, Harry promised. Every chance I get. Of course you will, Mozag clicked soothingly. Colony bonds are not broken by distance. That evening, after most of the colony had settled in for the night, Harry sat with Aragog and Mozag in a high web platform, watching the stars peek through gaps in the forest canopy. I'm nervous, Harry admitted. I've barely spent any time around other humans since coming here. You have survived darker forests than the halls of Hogwarts, Aragog clicked wisely. Remember who you are, colony and wizard both. Will the other students think I'm strange? Harry asked, voicing his deepest fear. Mozag made a clicking sound that Harry recognized as laughter. Of course they will, small one. You are strange. But strange does not mean wrong. Harry smiled at that. I guess I am pretty weird now. I talk to spiders, climb walls, and make plants grow with my mind. Show us that again, Aragog requested, 8 eyes gleaming with interest. Harry closed his eyes, centering himself as Mozag had taught him years ago. He reached out with his magic, feeling the life forces of the plants around them. With a gentle push of will, he coaxed a nearby vine to grow rapidly, twisting upward around the web platform supports, flowering as it climbed. Your magic grows stronger, Aragog observed. Different from wizard magic. Dumbledore calls it earth magic, Harry explained. Says it's really old and not many wizards can do it anymore. They rely too much on wands. Will you use a wand at Hogwarts? Mozag asked. Harry shrugged. I guess I'll have to learn. But I won't forget what you taught me. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Harry gathered his few possessions, some clothes Hagrid had brought him, a journal where he'd recorded colony wisdom, and several special strands of silk gifted by Aragog and Mozag, infused with protective magic. On Tuesday morning, Harry stood at the forest edge with Arachnia, Aragog, and Mozag. The entire colony had clicked farewells earlier, but these 3 had accompanied him to the boundary. Remember, Mozag instructed, humans fear what they do not understand. Be cautious whom you trust with colony knowledge. I will, Harry promised. And don't let them change you too much, Arachnia added. You're perfect as you are. Harry smiled at his spider sister. No chance of that. Aragog extended one massive leg, touching Harry's shoulder gently. You carry our magic with you, young one. The forest will always recognize you as its own. Hagrid's massive form appeared through the trees, right on time. Ready, Harry, he called cheerfully. As I'll ever be, Harry replied, giving one last look to his spider family before stepping beyond the forest boundary. Yevi grown again, Hagrid noted as they walked toward Hogsmeade Village. Might need to get some new robes right away in Diagon Alley. Harry nodded, suddenly self-conscious about his appearance. His clothes, while clean, were obviously hand-me-downs. His hair hung past his shoulders, partially braided with glowing silk strands. And he knew his eyes sometimes unnerved people with their faint luminescence, a side effect of adapting to the forest's dim light. Will people stare at me? He asked Hagrid. Well, you're Harry Potter, Hagrid said matter-of-factly. People would stare anyway. But don't you worry, you're perfect as ya are. The words, so similar to Arachnia's, comforted Harry as they reached Hogsmeade. The small wizarding village was the first human settlement Harry had seen in 2 years. He found himself tensing at the presence of so many people, his senses overwhelmed by new smells, sounds, and magical signatures. Easy there, Hagrid said, noticing Harry's discomfort. We'll take the flow from the 3 broomsticks. Less overwhelming than the train fare your first trip. The pub was mercifully quiet in the morning hours. A few patrons looked up as they entered, their eyes widening at the sight of the giant man accompanied by a wild-looking boy. Mornin', Rosmerta, Hagrid greeted the barmaid. Just passin' through to use your flu, if ye don't mind. Of course not, Hagrid, Rosmerta replied, her curious gaze lingering on Harry. And who's your young friend? This is Harry, Hagrid said simply, not using his last name. Takin him shopping for his Hogwarts supplies. Harry nodded politely but stayed close to Hagrid, fighting the urge to crouch defensively as multiple people looked his way. Hagrid led him to the fireplace and explained how flue travel worked. Just throw the powder in, step into the green flames, and say, Diagon Alley, very clearly. Harry eyed the fireplace skeptically. Walk into fire. Are you sure? It won't burn ya, Hagrid promised. Magical fire. Still dubious, Harry followed the instructions. The spinning sensation was deeply unpleasant, and he tumbled out of the destination fireplace in an ungraceful heap. First time's always rough, said a kind voice as hands helped him up. Harry looked up to see a balding, red-headed man smiling at him. Before he could respond, Hagrid emerged from the fireplace with far more grace than his size would suggest. Thanks, Arthur, Hagrid said to the man. Didn't expect to run into ya today. Just picking up some supplies, Arthur replied before turning back to Harry. First time in Diagon Alley, young man. Harry nodded, finding his voice. Yes, sir. Getting my Hogwarts things. Wonderful. My son Ron's starting this year too. Perhaps you'll meet at school. Harry managed a smile before Hagrid guided him out of the shop and into the alley itself. The sensory assault was immediate, hundreds of magical signatures bombarding Harry's heightened senses, countless smells and sounds competing for attention. Yeah, all right. Hagrid asked, noticing Harry's wide eyes and tense posture. It's a lot, Harry admitted. Give me a minute. He closed his eyes briefly, using Mosag's centering technique to filter the overwhelming input. When he opened them again, he felt more balanced, able to process the colorful shops and bustling crowd. Better, he said. Where to first? Gringotts, the Wizard Bank, Hagrid answered. Gotta get ya some money from your vault. I have a vault. Course ya do. Ya didn't think your parents left ya with nothin', did ya? The imposing white marble building loomed ahead. As they approached, Harry noticed small, stern-looking creatures guarding the entrance. Goblins, Hagrid explained. Clever as they come, goblins, but not the friendliest of beasts. Harry studied them with interest. They feel different. Their magic is tied to metal and stone, not living things. Hagrid looked surprised. How'd you know that? Harry shrugged. I can feel it. Like how I feel the colony's web magic. Inside Gringotts, Harry found himself fascinated by the goblin's efficient movements and the complex magical signatures emanating from the vaults deep below. When they approached a counter, the goblin peered at Harry with obvious curiosity. Mr. Potter wishes to access his vault, Hagrid announced. And does Mr. Potter have his key? The goblin asked, leaning forward to examine Harry more closely. Got it right here, Hagrid said, producing a tiny golden key. And I've also got a letter from Professor Dumbledore about you-know-what in Vault 713. The goblin's eyes narrowed as he studied Harry. Interesting. Very interesting. What is? Harry asked directly. Your magical signature, Mr. Potter. Most unusual. The goblin sniffed the air. You carry the forest with you. Harry tensed, ready to defend his connection to the colony, but the goblin simply nodded with what might have been approval. Griphook will take you to your vault, he said, summoning another goblin. The cart ride through the tunnels was exhilarating, reminiscent of swinging through the web highways back home. Harry actually laughed with delight as they plunged deeper, earning a surprised look from Hagrid, who was turning distinctly green. Harry's vault contained more gold than he'd ever imagined. He filled a small bag with coins, feeling strangely disconnected from this wealth that was supposedly his. My parents left all this for me, he asked Hagrid as they returned to the cart. They wanted to make sure you were taken care of, Hagrid confirmed. James came from money, old wizarding family, the Potters. After retrieving a small, wrapped package from Vault 713, which piqued Harry's curiosity but earned him a Hogwarts business, very secret, from Hagrid, they headed back to Diagon Alley proper. Let's get your uniform first, Hagrid suggested. Madame Malkin's has what you need. The shop was warm and cluttered with racks of black robes. A squat witch dressed in mauve greeted them. Hogwarts, dear? She asked Harry. Got the lot here, another young man being fitted up just now, in fact. In the back of the shop, a boy with a pale, pointed face was standing on a footstool while another witch pinned his long black robes. Madame Malkin stood Harry on a stool next to him, slipped a robe over his head, and began pinning it to the right length. Hello, said the boy. Hogwarts too? Yes, Harry replied, standing unnaturally still, a habit from spending hours motionless while hunting with the colony. My father's next door buying my books and mother's up the street looking at wands, said the boy in a bored, drawling voice. Then I'm going to drag them off to look at racing brooms. I don't see why first years can't have their own. I think I'll bully father into getting me one and I'll smuggle it in somehow. The boy reminded Harry of Dudley, though considerably thinner. Have you got your own broom? The boy went on. No, said Harry. Play Quidditch at all? No, Harry said again, though he'd heard Hagrid mention the sport. I do, father says it's a crime if I'm not picked to play for my house, and I must say, I agree. Know what house you'll be in yet? No, said Harry, finding the boy increasingly irritating. Well, no one really knows until they get there, do they? But I know I'll be in Slytherin, all our family have been. Imagine being in Hufflepuff. I think I'd leave, wouldn't you? I don't know enough about the houses to judge them, Harry replied honestly. The boy finally seemed to really look at Harry. What's wrong with your eyes? They're glowing. Harry tensed. Nothing's wrong with them. They help me see in the dark. Before the conversation could continue, Madame Malkin said, That's you done, my dear, and Harry, glad for an excuse to stop talking to the boy, hopped down from the footstool. Well, I'll see you at Hogwarts, I suppose, said the drawling boy. Outside, Hagrid was waiting with ice cream cones for both of them. What's Quidditch? Harry asked as they walked toward the bookshop. Blimey, Harry, I keep forgettin' how much ya don't know, not knowin' about Quidditch. The colony doesn't exactly play sports, Harry pointed out with a small smile. Hagrid launched into an explanation of the Wizarding World's favorite game, which actually sounded interesting to Harry, especially the flying part. He'd always enjoyed the sensation of moving through the air on the web highways. Their next stop was Flourish and Blott's bookstore. Harry was immediately drawn to the towering shelves of magical knowledge, gravitating toward sections on magical creatures and herbology. Stick to your school books for now, Hagrid advised, though he smiled at Harry's enthusiasm. Plenty time for extra readin' once ya start school. Harry reluctantly put back Uncommon Connections, Wizards and Non-Human Magical Species, and gathered his required texts instead. At the apothecary, Harry fascinated the shopkeeper with his ability to identify rare ingredients by scent alone, a skill learned from helping Aragog sort through toxic and non-toxic plants. This venom, Harry said, pointing to a small vial of amber liquid, it's not from a regular spider. It's from an Appalachian snow spinner, isn't it? The apothecary's eyebrows shot up. Quite right, young man. Are you an apprentice potioneer? No, no spiders, Harry replied vaguely. Their final stop was Ollivander's for Harry's wand, the item he was most curious about. The narrow shop was dusty and quiet, humming with subtle magic that made Harry's skin tingle. Good afternoon, said a soft voice, startling Hagrid but not Harry, who had sensed the old man's presence the moment they entered. Hello, Harry said, turning to face the pale-eyed wand-maker. Ollivander moved closer, studying Harry with unblinking silver eyes. Harry Potter. I've been expecting you. His gaze lingered on Harry's eyes, then traveled to the silk threads woven into his hair. How interesting. Harry remained still under the scrutiny, used to being observed by multiple eyes at once. You have your mother's eyes, Ollivander continued. Though they've changed, haven't they? Adapted to your environment, perhaps. You knew my mother? Harry asked, ignoring the question about his eyes. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Lily Evans, 10¼ inches long, swishy, made of willow. Nice for charm work. He moved closer. Your father, on the other hand, favored a mahogany wand. 11 inches. Pliable. Excellent for transfiguration. Ollivander touched Harry's famous scar, sending a jolt of uncomfortable energy through him. Harry instinctively stepped back, his posture shifting subtly to a defensive stance. I'm sorry to say I sold the wand that did it, whispered Ollivander. 13½ inches. You. Powerful wand, very powerful, and in the wrong hands. Can we just find my wand, please? Harry interrupted, uncomfortable with both the contact and the subject. Of course, of course. Let's see. Ollivander pulled a long tape measure from his pocket. Which is your wand arm? I'm right-handed, Harry said, but I usually use both equally. Ambidextrous. Interesting. Ollivander began measuring Harry's arms, hands, and even between his nostrils, all while explaining how every Ollivander wand had a core of a powerful magical substance. What followed was a frustrating process of trying wand after wand, with none seeming right. Unlike the impatient boy at Madame Malkin's might have been, Harry remained calm. Colony life had taught him patience. Tricky customer, eh? Ollivander said, looking more excited rather than disappointed. Not to worry, the perfect match is here somewhere. He paused, considering Harry thoughtfully. I wonder, unusual combination, holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. Harry took the wand and immediately felt a surge of warmth through his fingers. When he waved it, a stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end like a firework, throwing dancing spots of light onto the walls. But something felt incomplete. Very good. Ollivander cried. Curious, very curious. What's curious? Harry asked. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar. Harry stared at the wand in his hand, feeling conflicted. It had clearly chosen him, but it didn't feel entirely right, like wearing someone else's shoes. Mr. Ollivander, he said carefully, the wand works, but it feels restrictive somehow. Like it's fighting against part of me. Ollivander's silver eyes widened. Most unusual. May I? He held out his hand, and Harry returned the wand. Ollivander examined it, then looked back at Harry with renewed fascination. Mr. Potter, would you permit me to try something unconventional? Harry nodded cautiously. Ollivander disappeared into the back of his shop, returning moments later with a small wooden box. In my family's long history of wand-making, we've occasionally encountered individuals whose magic doesn't fully align with traditional cores. In such rare cases, he opened the box to reveal several small compartments containing unusual substances. What are those? Hagrid asked, peering over Harry's shoulder. Alternative cores, Ollivander explained. For modified wands. The wand maker selected the holly wand and carefully opened a hidden seam along its length. The phoenix feather provides power, but something is missing. Mr. Potter, I believe you should choose the secondary element yourself. Magic will guide you. Harry looked at the box of strange substances. His hand hovered over them, feeling the magical signatures of each. Dragon heartstring, unicorn hair, and several he didn't recognize. Then his fingers stopped over a small vial containing what looked like silvery thread. That one, he said with certainty. Ollivander's eyebrows shot up. Acromantula silk. Extremely rare as a wand component, unpredictable, resistant to direct control, but uniquely attuned to natural magics. It feels right, Harry insisted. Very well. Ollivander carefully extracted a strand of the silk and, with practiced movements, wove it alongside the phoenix feather within the wand. The wood sealed itself seamlessly afterward. When Harry took the modified wand, the difference was immediate and dramatic. Not only did warmth flood his arm, but the sensation extended throughout his body, connecting to the earth magic he'd developed with the colony. The sparks that flew from the tip were not just red and gold but included strands of silver that formed momentary web patterns in the air. Extraordinary, Ollivander whispered. I've never seen such a reaction. The two cores, natural enemies in the wild, working in harmony. How much do I owe you? Harry asked, reluctant to part with the wand even momentarily. 7 galleons for the wand itself, Ollivander said. And, let's say an additional 3 for the modification. Though I should be paying you, Mr. Potter, for the privilege of witnessing such a unique bonding. After paying, Harry carefully tucked the wand into his belt. For the first time since entering Diagon Alley, he felt truly grounded, the wand serving as a bridge between his colony-taught magic and his wizarding heritage. That's everything on your list, Hagrid announced as they left Ollivander's. Got time for a quick birthday present before we head back. Birthday present? Harry repeated, startled. But it's not he stopped, realizing with surprise that it was indeed July 31st. He'd lost track of the date living in the forest. Course it is. Didn't think I'd forget, did ya? Hagrid grinned. 11 years old today, important birthday for a wizard. 20 minutes later, they emerged from Magical Menagerie with an unusual pet, not an owl as Hagrid had initially suggested, but a small emerald tree snake that had immediately slithered up Harry's arm and refused to leave. Unusual choice, the shopkeeper had commented. Not on the approved pets list for Hogwarts, strictly speaking. Special circumstances, Hagrid had assured her. Dumbledore's approved it already. The snake, whom Harry had named Vine for her bright green color, was now contentedly wrapped around his wrist, mostly hidden by his sleeve. Thanks, Hagrid, Harry said sincerely. Best birthday ever. Don't mention it, Hagrid replied gruffly. Though I still think an owl would have been more practical. Harry smiled. Vine won't have trouble delivering messages in the forest. And she can understand me. This was true in more ways than Hagrid realized. Harry had discovered during their brief interaction in the shop that he could communicate with the snake, another ability that had developed during his forest years. As they prepared to return to Hogsmeade via Floo, Harry felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension about the weeks ahead. September 1st was approaching fast, and with it, his entry into a world that was simultaneously his birthright and completely foreign. Back in the forest that evening, Harry shared everything with the colony, demonstrating his new wand and introducing Vine, who was promptly accepted as an honorary colony member despite being a natural prey species for spiders. The wand maker was right, Aragog clicked after examining Harry's wand. Phoenix and Acromantula, natural enemies. Yet in you, they find balance. Is that important? Harry asked. It is symbolic, Mozag explained. You bridge worlds that rarely meet peacefully. This will be your strength at Hogwarts, but also your challenge. The remaining month before term started passed quickly. Harry split his time between practicing basic wand movements, following the instructions in his textbooks, and refining his colony-taught skills. He was determined to enter Hogwarts prepared but unwilling to abandon the unique abilities he developed in the forest. On August 31st, the colony held a special gathering to bid Harry farewell. One by one, from the smallest spiderlings to Aragog himself, they approached to touch him with a leg or pincer, a traditional colony blessing for journeys. Take this, Mozag said, presenting Harry with a small pouch woven from the strongest silk. For protection. Inside was a collection of special silk strands, each imbued with different properties: strength, concealment, protection, and communication. The communication strand will vibrate when we send messages through the Great Web, she explained. Hold it, focus your thoughts, and we will hear you, even from the castle. I'll use it every day, Harry promised, his throat tight with emotion. And this, Aragog added, extending a silvery strand from his own spinnerets, is my gift. Colony Leadership Silk. It will help others recognize your authority when needed. Harry accepted it reverently, weaving it into the bracelet of silk threads he always wore on his left wrist. Remember who you are, Aragog clicked solemnly. Colony and wizard both. The next morning, Hagrid arrived to escort Harry to Hogsmeade Station, where he would catch the Hogwarts Express with the other students. Dumbledore had arranged this rather than having Harry simply walk to the castle from the forest, an attempt to give him a somewhat normal school experience from the start. Nervous? Hagrid asked as they walked. A bit, Harry admitted. I haven't spent much time around other kids. You'll be fine, Hagrid assured him. Just be yourself. That's what I'm worried about, Harry muttered. What if myself is too weird for them? Hagrid chuckled. Harry, you're walking into a castle full of people who can turn teacups into toads and make objects fly. Weird is relative. The Hogwarts Express was a gleaming scarlet steam engine, its platform already crowded with students and parents saying goodbyes. Harry felt immediately overwhelmed by the noise and magical energy, unconsciously shifting his posture to make himself less noticeable, a hunting technique from the colony. All right there, Harry? Hagrid asked, concerned by his sudden stillness. Just adapting, Harry replied, his eyes scanning the crowd. So many people. Find yourself a compartment, Hagrid advised. Quieter inside. I'll see ya at the feast, got to get back to Hogwarts myself now. With a reassuring pat on the shoulder that nearly knocked Harry over, Hagrid departed, leaving him to navigate the crowd alone. Harry moved silently through the throng, his colony-trained instincts helping him slip past groups of chattering students without drawing attention. He found an empty compartment at the very end of the train and settled in, Vine slithering out from his sleeve to explore the new environment. What do you think? Harry asked the snake in a soft hiss. Warm, Vine responded. Many smells. Many humans. You are tense. Yeah, Harry admitted. This is very different from the forest. The compartment door slid open, and a tall, red-headed boy poked his head in. Anyone sitting there? He asked, pointing at the seat opposite Harry. Everywhere else is full. Go ahead, Harry replied, straightening up from his instinctively hunched position. The boy sat down, giving Harry a curious look before glancing quickly at his forehead and then away again. I'm Ron, by the way. Ron Weasley. Harry Potter. Ron's eyes widened. So it's true. I thought Fred and George were having me on. Do you really have the, you know? He pointed at Harry's forehead. Harry pushed back his long hair to show the lightning scar. Wicked, Ron breathed. Then, seeming to really notice Harry's appearance for the first time, he added, What's with your eyes? They're sort of glowing. Harry tensed. Forest adaptation. Helps me see in the dark. Cool. Ron exclaimed, his reaction completely different from the pale boy in Diagon Alley. And is that, do you have a snake? Vine had poked her head out again, tongue flicking curiously toward Ron. This is Vine, Harry said, relieved by Ron's positive reaction. She's friendly. Brilliant, Ron said, though he kept a cautious distance. My brother Charlie works with dragons in Romania. Says reptiles are smarter than most people think. The ice broken, conversation flowed more easily. Ron explained about his large family, all wizards, and Harry carefully shared edited versions of his life with the Acromantulas, referring to them only as, my foster family in the forest, without specifying their species. So you actually live in the Forbidden Forest? Ron asked, impressed. That's mental. Dad says it's full of dangerous creatures. Most creatures aren't dangerous if you understand them, Harry replied with a shrug. It's all about respect. Their conversation was interrupted when the compartment door slid open again. A round-faced boy looked in tearfully. Sorry, he said, but have you seen a toad at all? When they shook their heads, he wailed, I've lost him. He keeps getting away from me. He'll turn up, said Ron. Yes, said the boy miserably. Well, if you see him. As he turned to leave, Harry spoke up. Wait. I might be able to help. The boy looked back hopefully. Really? Harry nodded and closed his eyes, extending his senses outward as he'd learned to do in the forest. He felt for the magical signature of a toad, distinct from the human magic surrounding them. After a moment, he picked up a faint amphibian presence. 3 compartments down, Harry said, opening his eyes. Under the seat near the window. The boy gaped at him. How could you possibly know that? Harry shrugged. Just a feeling. Worth checking, anyway. Thanks. The boy hurried away. Ron stared at Harry. How did you do that? Living in the forest, you learn to sense things, Harry explained vaguely. Find food, avoid predators, that sort of thing. Before Ron could question him further, the compartment door slid open yet again. The toadless boy was back, this time with a girl already wearing her Hogwarts robes. He found Trevor. Right where you said he'd be, the boy exclaimed. This is Hermione Granger. I told her what you did. The girl had bushy brown hair and rather large front teeth. She studied Harry with intense curiosity. That's extremely advanced magic, she said. I've read about tracking charms, but they're NEWT level at least. How did you do it? It's not exactly a charm, Harry tried to explain. More of a sensing technique. Fascinating, she said, sitting down uninvited. I've tried a few simple spells myself, just for practice, and they've all worked for me. Nobody in my family's magic at all, so it was ever such a surprise when I got my letter, but I was ever so pleased, of course. She spoke very fast, hardly pausing for breath, reminding Harry of the younger Spiderlings when they got excited. I'm Hermione Granger, by the way. And you are? Ron Weasley, Ron muttered. Harry Potter, said Harry. Are you really, said Hermione. I know all about you, of course. I got a few extra books for background reading, and you're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century. Am I? Said Harry, feeling dazed. Goodness, didn't you know? I'd have found out everything I could if it was me, said Hermione. Do either of you know what house you'll be in? I've been asking around, and I hope I'm in Gryffindor. It sounds by far the best. I hear Dumbledore himself was in it, but I suppose Ravenclaw wouldn't be too bad. She continued at breakneck speed until Neville, as Harry learned the Toad Boy was called, tugged at her arm, reminding her they needed to continue looking for someone's rat. After they left, Ron exhaled dramatically. Whatever house I'm in, I hope she's not in it. Harry smiled faintly. She's just excited. Like a spiderling with its first big catch. Ron gave him an odd look. You say some weird stuff, mate. Sorry, Harry said, realizing his colony reference had slipped out. Forest habits. The journey continued pleasantly enough, with Ron explaining more about Hogwarts houses and Harry gradually growing more comfortable with human conversation. The countryside flying past the window became wilder and darker as they traveled north. Around mid-afternoon, a dimpled woman with a food trolley stopped by their compartment. Harry, having never seen wizard sweets before, bought a bit of everything to share with Ron, who had packed sandwiches he wasn't enthusiastic about. Careful with those, Ron warned as Harry opened a chocolate frog. They jump. Sure enough, the frog leapt from the package, but Harry's reflexes, honed by years of catching fast-moving prey in the forest, allowed him to snatch it mid-air with startling speed. Whoa! Ron exclaimed. You've got seeker reflexes, you do. Harry smiled and bit into the chocolate. What's a seeker? As Ron launched into another Quidditch explanation, the compartment door slid open once more. This time, it was the pale boy from Madame Malkin's, flanked by two thick-set boys who looked like bodyguards. Is it true? He said. They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment. So it's you, is it? Yes, said Harry, studying the three boys with the careful assessment he'd use for potential threats in the forest. This is Crabbe and Goyle, said the pale boy carelessly. And my name's Malfoy, Draco Malfoy. Ron gave a slight cough, which might have been hiding a snigger. Draco Malfoy looked at him. Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all the Weasleys have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford. He turned back to Harry. You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there. He held out his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. I think I can tell the wrong sort for myself, thanks, he said coolly. Draco Malfoy's pale cheeks flushed pink. I'd be careful if I were you, Potter. Unless you're a bit politer you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know what was good for them either. Harry stood up, his movement so swift and fluid that Malfoy took an involuntary step back. There was something distinctly predatory in Harry's stance, shoulders low, weight balanced perfectly, eyes gleaming in the compartment's dim light. Say that again, Harry said quietly, his voice carrying a dangerous edge that seemed impossible from an 11-year-old. Malfoy tried to sneer but couldn't quite pull it off with Harry's unnervingly intense gaze fixed on him. You're going to fight us, are you? Fighting is inefficient, Harry replied, his voice still soft but carrying. Spiders don't fight prey. They immobilize it. The statement, delivered so matter-of-factly, sent a visible shiver through all three boys. Vine chose that moment to slither out from Harry's sleeve, rising up to flick her tongue toward the intruders. You're not normal, Malfoy said, taking another step back. Those eyes. Come on, he said to Crabbe and Goyle, backing away. My father will hear about this. After they left, Ron burst into laughter. That was bloody brilliant. You scared them off without even touching them. Harry sat down, relaxing his posture. Intimidation displays work on most predators. They're no different. You called them prey, Ron pointed out, still grinning. And what was that about spiders? Harry tensed, realizing he'd revealed too much. Just something I learned in the forest. Spiders are efficient hunters. Well, it worked a treat on Malfoy, Ron said, apparently not noticing Harry's discomfort. His face. Priceless. As darkness fell outside, they changed into their Hogwarts robes. Harry felt strange in the uniform, the fabric was constricting after years of loose, practical clothing. He carefully concealed Vine inside his sleeve and made sure the silk strands in his hair were hidden beneath his unruly black locks. A voice echoed through the train, "We will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train, it will be taken to the school separately." Harry's stomach lurched with nerves. The moment was nearly here, his entry into the wizarding world proper. Would he find acceptance as he had with the colony, or would his differences make him an outcast? "You all right, mate?" Ron asked, noticing Harry's tense expression. "You look like you're about to face a dragon." Harry managed a smile. "Just nervous." "Me too," Ron admitted. "Fred said we have to wrestle a troll for the sorting. He's probably lying, though. Usually is." The train slowed and finally stopped. People pushed their way toward the doors and out onto a tiny, dark platform. Harry immediately felt more comfortable in the cool night air, his enhanced vision allowing him to see clearly despite the darkness. "Fur's years. Fur's years over here." Hagrid's familiar voice called, bringing a smile to Harry's face. "All right there, Harry?" Hagrid asked as he spotted him. Harry nodded, relieved to see a friendly face. "Come on, follow me, any more Fur's years?" "Mind your step, now." The first years followed Hagrid down a steep, narrow path that Harry recognized as leading toward the lake. The forest surrounding them felt familiar and comforting, and he could sense the distant vibrations of the colony far to the east, home. "Y'all get your Fur's sight, oh, Hogwarts in a sec," Hagrid called over his shoulder. "Just round this bend here." There was a loud boo-hoo, as the narrow path opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a high mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. Even Harry, who had seen many wonders in the forest, was awed by the sight. The castle radiated ancient magic that he could feel even from this distance, deep, powerful currents flowing through stone and earth. "No more N4 to a boat," Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were joined in their boat by Hermione and Neville. As the fleet of little boats moved off across the glassy lake, Harry trailed his fingers in the cold water, feeling the magic pulsing beneath the surface. "There's something big living in here," he murmured, more to himself than the others. "What?" Ron asked, alarmed. "The giant squid," Hermione supplied promptly. "I read about it in Hogwarts, a history." Harry nodded absently, still focused on the magical signatures surrounding them. The castle grew closer, its presence increasingly overwhelming to his sensitive magic. When they reached the underground harbor and climbed out onto rocks and pebbles, Harry felt a momentary pang of homesickness for the colony's familiar web highways and the comforting presence of Aragog and Mozag. But there was no turning back now. Hagrid led them up a passageway in the rock, coming out at last onto smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up a flight of stone steps and crowded around the huge oak front door. "Everyone here?" Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times on the castle door. It swung open immediately, revealing Professor McGonagall in her emerald green robes. "The Fur's years, Professor McGonagall," said Hagrid. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." She pulled the door wide, revealing an entrance hall so big Harry thought the entire Acromantula colony could have fit inside it. McGonagall led them across the flagged stone floor, past a doorway from which came the drone of hundreds of voices, and into a small, empty chamber off the hall. "Welcome to Hogwarts," said Professor McGonagall. "The start of term banquet will begin shortly, but before you take your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses." She explained the house system briefly before concluding, "The sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes in front of the rest of the school. I suggest you all smarten yourselves up as much as you can while you are waiting." Her eyes lingered for a moment on Harry, and he received a small nod, acknowledgement of their prior acquaintance. "I shall return when we are ready for you," said Professor McGonagall. "Please wait quietly." She left the chamber, and immediately the first years erupted into nervous whispers about the sorting. Harry remained silent, focusing on his breathing to stay calm. Vine shifted beneath his sleeve, sensing his tension. "It will be fine," the snake hissed softly. "You are a predator among prey." "They're not prey," Harry hissed back under his breath. "They're my classmates." A few people nearby gasped, having noticed his whispered hissing. Before anyone could comment, several people screamed as about 20 ghosts streamed through the back wall. While the other students gaped, Harry studied the ghosts with interest. Their magical signatures were fascinating, echoes rather than full patterns, like reflections in water rather than the objects themselves. Professor McGonagall returned and instructed them to form a line. Harry ended up behind Ron and in front of a sandy-haired boy he didn't know. They walked out of the chamber, back across the hall, and through a pair of double doors into the Great Hall. The vast room was lit by thousands of candles floating in midair over 4 long tables filled with students. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers sat. McGonagall led the first years up to stand in front of the teacher's table, facing the rest of the school. Harry heard Hermione whisper, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history, and realized she was talking about the ceiling, which was velvety black and dotted with stars. It was beautiful, but nothing compared to viewing the real stars through gaps in the forest canopy from atop the colony's highest web platforms." Professor McGonagall silently placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool she put a pointed wizard's hat that was patched, frayed, and extremely dirty. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then the hat twitched, a rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing. Harry listened in fascination as the sorting hat described the 4 houses. When it finished, the whole hall burst into applause. Harry clapped too, wondering which house would claim him, or if any truly could. Professor McGonagall stepped forward holding a long roll of parchment. "When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted," she said. "Abbott, Hannah." One by one, students were called forward and sorted. Harry paid close attention to where his new acquaintances went, Hermione to Gryffindor, causing Ron to groan, Neville also to Gryffindor, and Malfoy to Slytherin. Finally, McGonagall called, "Potter, Harry." As Harry stepped forward, whispers broke out across the hall. "Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter?" He ignored them, focusing instead on the hat as McGonagall placed it on his head. It fell over his eyes, plunging him into darkness that his enhanced vision quickly adjusted to. "My word," said a small voice in his ear. "What have we here? I've never encountered a mind quite like yours, Mr. Potter." Hello, Harry thought, unsurprised by the mental communication Aragog had taught him about thought-sharing years ago. "Fascinating," the hat continued. "Your mind has patterns I've never seen before, part human wizard, part something else. The forest has changed you, hasn't it?" "The colony is my family," Harry thought firmly. "Yes, I see that. Such loyalty. And courage too, to survive in their world. Cunning and adaptability, and a thirst to prove yourself. But where to put you? You don't quite fit any single house perfectly." Harry gripped the edges of the stool, uncertain. "Your parents were Gryffindors," the hat mused. "But you've developed qualities from all 4 houses in your unique upbringing. Difficult, very difficult. I just want to belong somewhere, Harry thought. Ah, but that's just it, you already belong to a world between worlds. Perhaps, yes, better be Gryffindor. The hat shouted the last word to the hall. Harry removed it and walked shakily toward the Gryffindor table, where he was receiving the loudest cheer yet. A prefect got up and shook his hand vigorously, and the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" Harry sat down opposite a ghost in a ruff he'd seen earlier. The ghost patted his arm, giving Harry an extremely cold, uncomfortable sensation, not unlike touching the ice-cold silk of a newly molted Acromantula. Once the sorting finished with Zabini, Blaze, going to Slytherin, Professor Dumbledore got to his feet, beaming at the students with his arms opened wide. "Welcome," he said. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words, nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. Thank you." He sat back down as everybody clapped and cheered. Harry stared at Dumbledore, recognizing the twinkle in his eyes from their forest meetings but seeing a new side to the headmaster in this public setting. Harry's attention was pulled away as the dishes in front of him suddenly filled with food, more food than he'd ever seen in one place. Living with the colony, his diet had been simple, cooked meat and vegetables Hagrid brought, supplemented by edible plants and mushrooms he gathered himself. "That does look good," said the ghost in the ruff sadly, watching Harry load his plate with a little of everything except the mint humbugs. "Can't you?" Harry began. "I haven't eaten for nearly 500 years, said the ghost. "I don't need to, of course, but one does miss it. I don't think I've introduced myself. Sir Nicholas de Mimsy Porpington at your service. Resident Ghost of Gryffindor Tower." "I know who you are," said Ron suddenly. "My brothers told me about you, you're nearly headless Nick." "I would prefer you to call me Sir Nicholas de Mimsy," the ghost began stiffly, but sandy-haired Seamus Finnegan interrupted. "Nearly headless? How can you be nearly headless?" Harry sensed what was coming and politely looked away as Sir Nicholas demonstrated his partial beheading, causing several first-years to lose their appetites momentarily. As the meal progressed, conversation turned to families. "I'm half and half," said Seamus. "Me dad's a muggle. Mom didn't tell him she was a witch till after they were married. Bit of a nasty shock for him." The others laughed, and Neville shared about being raised by his grandmother. Then attention turned to Harry. "What about you, Harry?" Dean Thomas asked. "Everyone knows about, well, you know, but where did you grow up?" Harry hesitated, carefully crafting his response. "I lived with my muggle relatives until I was 9. Then I found a new home in the forest near Hogwarts." "The Forbidden Forest?" Seamus asked incredulously. "With who?" "A sort of adopted family," Harry said vaguely. "They taught me about magic in their own way." "Is that why your eyes glow like that?" Lavender Brown asked, staring at him with fascination. "They're so pretty." Harry shifted uncomfortably. "It's just an adaptation to seeing in the dark." Further questions were interrupted as the main courses disappeared and desserts appeared in their place. Harry selected a simple bowl of fruit, unfamiliar with most of the rich puddings and cakes on offer. As he ate, he glanced up at the high table. Hagrid was drinking deeply from his goblet, and McGonagall was talking to Dumbledore. A teacher in a purple turban was speaking to a hook-nosed, greasy-haired man who suddenly looked past his companion straight into Harry's eyes. A sharp, hot pain shot across the scar on Harry's forehead, accompanied by a disturbing magical signature that made Harry instinctively recoil. "Ouch!" Harry clapped a hand to his head, drawing concerned looks from his housemates. "What is it?" asked Percy Weasley, the prefect. "Nothing," Harry said quickly, though he continued to feel uneasy. "Who's that teacher talking to the one in the turban?" "That's Professor Snape, head of Slytherin House," Percy explained. "He teaches potions, but everyone knows he's after Quirrell's job, that's the one in the turban." Teaches defense against the dark arts. No wonder he looks nervous, poor man. Harry watched Snape for a moment longer, noting how the professor's magical signature seemed to clash with Quirrell's in a way that made his scar tingle uncomfortably. Something wasn't right there, but he couldn't identify what. At last, the desserts disappeared, and Dumbledore got to his feet again. The hall fell silent. Just a few more words now that we are all fed and watered. I have a few start-of-term notices to give you. First years should note that the forest on the grounds is forbidden to all pupils. Dumbledore's twinkling eyes flashed in Harry's direction for just a moment. I have also been asked by Mr. Filch, the caretaker, to remind you all that no magic should be used between classes in the corridors. Quidditch trials will be held in the second week of the term. Anyone interested in playing for their house teams should contact Madam Hooch. And finally, I must tell you that this year, the third-floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death. A few students laughed, but Harry didn't. He'd learned in the forest that clear warnings about danger should always be taken seriously. And now, before we go to bed, let us sing the school song, cried Dumbledore, giving his wand a little flick as a long golden ribbon flew out of it and twisted into words. The resulting cacophony as the school bellowed the song in different tunes was unlike anything Harry had heard in the colony. He mouthed along silently, overwhelmed by the noise. Finally, only the Weasley twins were left singing a very slow funeral march. Dumbledore conducted their last few lines with his wand and, when they had finished, was one of those who clapped loudest. "Ah, music," he said, wiping his eyes. "A magic beyond all we do here. And now, bedtime. Off you trot." The Gryffindor first years followed Percy through the chattering crowds, out of the great hall, and up the marble staircase. Harry tried to memorize the route, but the moving staircases and seemingly random turns made it challenging. Twice they passed through doorways hidden behind sliding panels and hanging tapestries. They climbed more staircases, yawning and dragging their feet, until they finally reached the end of a corridor where a portrait of a very fat woman in a pink silk dress hung. "Password," she said. "Caput Draconis," said Percy, and the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall. They all scrambled through it and found themselves in the Gryffindor common room, a cozy, round room full of squashy armchairs. Percy directed the girls through one door to their dormitory and the boys through another. At the top of a spiral staircase, they were obviously in one of the towers, they found their beds, 5 four-posters hung with deep red, velvet curtains. Their trunks had already been brought up. Too tired to talk much, they pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. Harry, however, didn't immediately lie down. The dormitory felt stifling after years of sleeping in the open air of his tree hollow. The bed was too soft, the room too warm, the air too still. "You all right, Harry?" Ron mumbled sleepily from the next bed. "Fine," Harry replied. "Just not used to beds like this." When the other boys' breathing had deepened into sleep, Harry quietly opened the window beside his bed, allowing fresh night air to flow in. He then pulled the mattress onto the floor, wrapped himself in a single blanket rather than the thick comforter, and finally settled into a position that felt more natural. Vine slithered out from beneath his pillow, curling contentedly on his chest. "Strange nest," she hissed softly. "Strange everything," Harry hissed back. "But we'll adapt. We always do." He reached for the silk pouch Mozag had given him, finding the communication strand inside. Holding it gently, he focused his thoughts toward the distant colony. "I've arrived safely," he projected through the strand, feeling it vibrate slightly as his message traveled. "The castle is overwhelming but interesting. I miss you all." Moments later, he felt a return vibration, faint but distinct. The colony had heard him. He was not alone. With that comforting thought, Harry finally drifted off to sleep, dreaming of web highways stretching between the forest and the castle, connecting his two worlds. Chapter 3, Between Two Worlds, Expelliarmus. Harry's wand shot from his hand and clattered against the stone wall. Before his opponent could press the advantage, Harry dropped into a crouch and pushed his magic outward through the floor. Vines erupted around his attacker's ankles, tangling them instantly. "That's not fair," Ron complained, trying to free himself from the writhing plants. "We agreed wands only." Harry grinned, retrieving his wand with a casual wave of his hand that summoned it back. "Sorry. Reflex. Reflex my arse," Ron grumbled good-naturedly as Harry released the vines. 2 years at Hogwarts and you still fight like you're in the forest. At 13, Harry had grown several inches taller but remained lean and wiry. His black hair now reached past his shoulders, with thin braids containing glowing Acromantula silk woven throughout. The luminescent quality of his green eyes had intensified, giving him an otherworldly appearance that his classmates had mostly gotten used to. "Old habits," Harry shrugged, helping Ron up. "Ready to try again?" Before Ron could answer, Hermione burst into the empty classroom they were using for practice, her bushy hair even wilder than usual and her face flushed with excitement. "Harry! I found it," she exclaimed, clutching a heavy, ancient-looking book. "The reference to web magic I was telling you about." Harry's interest peaked immediately. Throughout his 2 years at Hogwarts, he'd been working with Hermione to find historical connections between wizard magic and the unique abilities he'd developed with the colony. "Let me see," he said eagerly, taking the book. Hermione pointed to a faded illustration showing a robed figure surrounded by what appeared to be glowing strands. "It's called the Uranii Nexus, a forgotten branch of magic practiced by a secretive order of wizards who lived alongside magical creature communities. They specialized in sensing and manipulating magical connections between living things." "Exactly what I do," Harry murmured, scanning the text. "Aragog always said it was ancient magic." Ron peered over Harry's shoulder. "Looks complicated. Does it say how they learned it?" "That's the fascinating part," Hermione said. "They didn't use wands or incantations. They developed their abilities through deep connection with magical creatures, particularly those sensitive to magical currents, like Acromantulas and Thestrals." Harry exchanged a meaningful look with his friends. In their first year, after several close calls and one dramatic incident involving a mountain troll, Harry had finally revealed the full truth about his forest family to Ron and Hermione. After initial shock, and in Ron's case, several nights of spider nightmares, they'd become not only accepting but actively interested in the colony. "I need to show this to Aragog and Mozag," Harry decided, closing the book carefully. "They've always said my magic was developing differently from standard wizard patterns." "You're visiting the colony this weekend anyway, right?" Ron asked. Harry nodded. "Professor Dumbledore approved my usual weekend pass. I haven't been back in 3 weeks, not since that business with the chamber." The memory of the previous month's events hung heavily between them. The opening of the Chamber of Secrets, the petrifications, and the revelation that Harry could speak Parseltongue had thrown the school into chaos. Worst of all, many had initially suspected Aragog's colony was responsible for the attacks. It had taken Harry's direct intervention, alongside Dumbledore, to clear the Acromantula's name, culminating in the dramatic revelation that a basilisk controlled by a memory of Tom Riddle had been the true culprit. "I still can't believe Hagrid got sent to Azkaban," Hermione said softly. "Even temporarily. The Ministry needed a scapegoat," Harry replied, his voice hardening. "They've always been looking for excuses to crack down on dangerous creatures." A glance at his watch made Harry straighten. "We should get to Transfiguration. McGonagall will have our heads if we're late again." The three friends hurried through Hogwarts corridors, weaving efficiently through groups of students. Harry moved with the silent grace he'd developed in the colony, unconsciously using the most efficient path through the crowd. Professor McGonagall was writing on the blackboard when they slipped into the classroom just as the bell rang. She gave them a knowing look but said nothing as they took their seats. "Today we will be continuing our work on animate-to-animate transfigurations," she announced. "Specifically, the transformation of beetles into buttons. While this may seem a simple task, I assure you the preservation of mass while altering fundamental properties requires precise wand work and clear intention. As McGonagall demonstrated the spell, Harry focused intently. Transfiguration had proven his most challenging subject, not for lack of power, but because his magic resisted the rigid, structured approach the subject demanded. Mr. Potter, McGonagall called after the demonstration, perhaps you would like to attempt the spell first. Harry approached the desk, aware of his classmates' eyes on him. These impromptu challenges from McGonagall had become something of a tradition, her way of pushing him to adapt his unique magical approach to conventional wizarding techniques. He pointed his wand at the beetle, visualizing the transformation while incanting, Scarabaeus mutatio. The beetle shimmered, but instead of becoming a button, it transformed into something halfway between, a button-shaped object that still possessed tiny legs and antennae. Stifled laughter rippled through the classroom. Harry frowned in concentration. Interesting approach, Mr. Potter, McGonagall said, lips twitching. Though not quite what we're aiming for. Perhaps try again with less creativity. Harry closed his eyes briefly, centering himself as Mozag had taught him. The problem, as always, was that his magic wanted to preserve the beetle's life essence rather than transform it completely. Colony magic valued life in all forms. This time, he focused on temporarily suspending the beetle's life force, not destroying it, but setting it aside during the transformation. Scarabaeus mutatio, he said again, with new intention. The beetle smoothly transformed into a perfect black button. Excellent, Mr. Potter, McGonagall said with genuine approval. 5 points to Gryffindor for persistence. As the class continued their practice, Harry found himself thinking about the upcoming weekend. His visits to the colony had become increasingly important as tensions rose between the Ministry and magical creatures following the chamber incident. Aragog had sent concerning messages through their silk communication strand. Ministry officials had been spotted at the forest edge, conducting what they called a creature census, but what felt more like reconnaissance. When class ended, Harry, Ron and Hermione headed toward the Great Hall for lunch. Potter. The sharp voice made them turn. Professor Snape stood in the corridor, his perpetual scowl firmly in place. The headmaster wishes to see you, Snape said curtly. Immediately. Now? Harry asked. What about lunch? I'm certain your adoring fans can survive without your presence at one meal, Snape replied sarcastically. The password is, Fizzing Whizbee. With that, he swept away, black robes billowing dramatically. What do you think Dumbledore wants? Ron wondered. Harry shrugged. No idea. But I'd better go find out. Want us to save you some food? Hermione offered. Thanks, Harry smiled. I'll meet you in herbology. He made his way to the gargoyle guarding Dumbledore's office, gave the password, and rode the spiral staircase upward. Before he could knock, Dumbledore's voice called, Enter, Harry. The headmaster sat behind his desk, but he wasn't alone. A witch Harry didn't recognize stood by the window, tall, severe-looking, with steel-gray hair pulled into a tight bun and immaculate plum-colored robes bearing the insignia of the Ministry of Magic. Ah, Harry, Dumbledore said pleasantly. Thank you for coming so promptly. May I introduce Madame Dolores Umbridge, Senior Undersecretary to the Minister for Magic? The witch turned, revealing a face that reminded Harry uncomfortably of a toad, wide, flabby, with a slack mouth and bulging eyes. Despite her unimposing appearance, Harry immediately sensed danger. Her magical signature felt wrong somehow. Constraining. Rigid. So this is the famous Harry Potter, she said in a high-pitched, girlish voice that seemed completely at odds with her appearance. How delightful to meet you at last. She extended a stubby-fingered hand adorned with several gaudy rings. Harry shook it briefly, fighting the urge to wipe his hand afterward. Madame Umbridge is here on ministry business, Dumbledore explained, his tone light but his eyes lacking their usual twinkle. Specifically, the new Magical Creature Regulation Initiative. Oh. Harry kept his voice neutral despite the immediate alarm bells going off in his head. Indeed, Umbridge simpered. The recent, unfortunate events at Hogwarts have highlighted the need for stronger oversight of magical creatures, particularly those classified as XXXXX by the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. Harry's jaw tightened. XXXXX classification, known wizard killers, impossible to train or domesticate, was the Ministry's designation for Acromantulas. I understand you have a unique perspective on such matters, Mr. Potter, Umbridge continued. Having spent time in the Forbidden Forest. I do, Harry confirmed carefully. Madam Umbridge has requested your assistance with the initiative, Dumbledore interjected. Given your specialized knowledge. Harry looked sharply at Dumbledore, who gave him an almost imperceptible nod, a warning to proceed cautiously. What kind of assistance? Harry asked. Umbridge's smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. Information, primarily. The Ministry has received reports of an Acromantula colony within the forest, a clear violation of the ban on experimental breeding established in 1965. As someone who has explored the forest extensively, you might have encountered evidence of such creatures. Harry's heart pounded, but years of colony training had taught him to control his physical reactions. His face remained impassive. I've seen many creatures in the forest, he said neutrally. It's a vast place. But surely, Umbridge pressed, her girlish voice hardening slightly, a colony of giant spiders would be difficult to miss? Particularly for someone who spends weekends there regularly. So she knew about his weekend passes. Harry glanced at Dumbledore, whose serene expression revealed nothing. The forest has many secrets, Harry replied. And most creatures there avoid human contact. Indeed. Umbridge's eyes narrowed. That's not what I've heard about your experiences. Before Harry could respond, Dumbledore smoothly intervened. I believe what Harry is saying, Dolores, is that the forest ecosystem is complex and delicately balanced. Any intervention should be approached with great caution and respect for that balance. Respect? Umbridge gave a tinkling laugh that set Harry's teeth on edge. These are XXXXX classified creatures we're discussing, Dumbledore. If they exist, they represent a clear and present danger to the school and nearby wizarding communities. The Minister has authorized a thorough sweep of the forest, beginning this weekend. Harry felt as if the floor had dropped away beneath him. This weekend, when he was planning to visit the colony. The forest is technically Hogwarts property, Dumbledore noted mildly. Any such action would require my approval as headmaster. Which is why I'm here, Umbridge replied sweetly. The Minister hoped you would cooperate voluntarily. Otherwise, he is prepared to invoke emergency magical creature containment protocols, which, as you know, supersede even Hogwarts' ancient protections. The threat hung in the air between them. Harry's mind raced, trying to calculate how quickly he could warn the colony if the Ministry launched an immediate attack. I see, Dumbledore said after a moment. And what exactly would this sweep entail? Standard procedure, Umbridge said dismissively. Containment specialists, creature experts, horror support if necessary. Any XXXXX classified creatures found would be humanely dispatched, of course. Harry couldn't contain himself. You mean murdered? Umbridge's eyes flashed dangerously. Controlled, Mr. Potter. Dangerous creatures must be controlled for the greater good of wizarding society. And who decides what's dangerous? Harry challenged. The same Ministry that sent Hagrid to Azkaban without trial. That classified werewolves as dark creatures even when they take wolfsbane. Harry, Dumbledore said quietly, a note of warning in his voice. Umbridge studied Harry with new interest. You seem unusually passionate about this topic, Mr. Potter. One might almost think you have a personal connection to these creatures. I have a personal connection to justice, Harry replied, meeting her gaze steadily. And to judging individuals by their actions, not their species. A tense silence followed, broken only by the soft whirring of the silver instruments on Dumbledore's desk. "Well," Umbridge finally said with forced brightness, "this has been most illuminating. I'll inform the Minister of our discussion." She turned to Dumbledore. "You have until Monday to provide formal approval for the sweep, Headmaster. After that, we proceed with or without it." She nodded curtly to Harry. "Mr. Potter, I suspect will be speaking again soon." After she left, Harry turned to Dumbledore, not bothering to hide his alarm. "They're going to attack the colony." "Not immediately," Dumbledore replied, rising from his desk to pace thoughtfully. "Dolores Umbridge enjoys the exercise of power, but she is also a creature of bureaucracy. There will be forms to file, teams to assemble." "But they will come," Harry insisted. "Yes," Dumbledore acknowledged. "Unless we can prevent it." "How?" "She said even you can't stop them if they invoke those emergency protocols." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled faintly. "There are many kinds of power, Harry. The Ministry wields one kind, but there are others." Political power, Harry realized. Public opinion. Precisely, Dumbledore nodded approvingly. The Ministry's relationship with magical creatures has always been contentious, but there are many in Wizarding Society who advocate for more progressive approaches, particularly after recent reforms in werewolf legislation. "So we need allies," Harry said, mind racing. "People who'll speak out against a massacre of sentient beings." "It would certainly help," Dumbledore agreed. "But first, you should warn Aragog. This weekend may be your last opportunity to visit safely for some time." Harry nodded grimly. "I'll go immediately after classes end tomorrow." "One more thing, Harry," Dumbledore said as Harry turned to leave. "Be careful what you share with others. Madame Umbridge will be watching you closely now." "I understand," Harry replied, already planning his next moves. The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes and whispered strategy sessions with Ron and Hermione. By dinner, they had outlined a plan. Harry would visit the colony early, Hermione would research legal precedents for creature protection, and Ron would contact his father at the Ministry for inside information. "Dad's always been sympathetic to magical creatures," Ron explained as they huddled in a corner of the common room that evening. "And he knows people in different departments who might help." "We need to be careful," Hermione cautioned. "This Umbridge woman sounds dangerous. If she realizes you're actively working against the Ministry's plans." "I know," Harry said grimly. "But I can't just let them slaughter my family." The determined set of his jaw reminded his friends of how different Harry was from other 13-year-olds. 2 years of Hogwarts education had integrated him more fully into human society, but at his core, he remained colony-raised, with all the fierce loyalty and protective instincts that entailed. Friday's classes crawled by with excruciating slowness. During double potions, Harry found it nearly impossible to concentrate, earning a particularly scathing commentary from Snape when his shrinking solution turned orange instead of green. "Perhaps if you paid attention to your cauldron instead of daydreaming, Potter, you might produce something that wouldn't poison the drinker instantly," Snape sneered. "Then again, given your unusual upbringing, perhaps you consider poisoning a valid hunting technique?" The Slytherin snickered, but Harry barely registered the insult. His mind was too preoccupied with warning the colony. Finally, the last bell rang. Harry raced to Gryffindor Tower, grabbed his forest pack, always kept ready for weekend visits, and headed for Dumbledore's office to use the special Floo connection that would take him to Hagrid's hut. "Fizzing Whiz-Bee," he told the gargoyle, which leapt aside. Dumbledore was waiting for him. "Ah, Harry. Ready for your weekend visit?" "Yes, sir." "I've taken the liberty of informing Hagrid you'll be arriving early," Dumbledore said. "He'll be expecting you." The headmaster hesitated, then added, "Be vigilant, Harry. I don't believe Madame Umbridge would move so quickly, but it's best not to take chances." Harry nodded grimly and stepped into the Floo. "Hagrid's hut," he called, and vanished in a whirl of green flames. He tumbled out into Hagrid's cozy cabin, where the half-giant was waiting with a mug of tea. There ya are, Harry. Hagrid greeted him warmly. Bit early, aren't ya? Emergency, Harry explained quickly, brushing soot from his clothes. The Ministry's planning to raid the forest, Hagrid. They're after the colony. Hagrid's bushy eyebrows shot up. Raid the forest? They can't do that. It's Hogwarts grounds. They're invoking some kind of emergency protocol, Harry said. Umbridge claims they have the authority to override even Dumbledore. Umbridge? Hagrid's face darkened. That woman's got it in for anything that ain't a pure-blood wizard. Been pushin' anti-creature legislation for years. I need to warn Aragog and Mozag, Harry said, heading for the door. Are you coming? Course I am, Hagrid replied, grabbing his crossbow. Aragog's me oldest friend. They set off at a brisk pace, entering the forest as the sun began to sink toward the horizon. Once under the canopy, Harry felt an immediate sense of homecoming, the familiar scents, sounds, and magical signatures washing over him like a welcome embrace. He broke into a jog, then a run, moving with practiced ease through the undergrowth. Hagrid followed as quickly as his bulk allowed, though Harry had to periodically wait for him to catch up. Yeah, still move like one of them, Hagrid observed during one such pause, not unkindly. Like the forest is part of ya. It is, Harry replied simply. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Harry began to sense the colony's web network, the intricate magical connections that linked the Acromantulas territory. He extended his awareness along these connections, sending a warning pulse ahead. They were still a mile from the colony's heart when Arachnia appeared, dropping silently from the canopy to land on the path before them. No longer the wolf-sized adolescent of Harry's first year, she now stood as tall as a horse, her blue-patterned carapace gleaming in the dappled light. Harry, she clicked rapidly in the Acromantula language. Something is wrong. I feel your anxiety through the web. Danger, Harry clicked back, the spider language coming as naturally to him as English. Humans plan to attack the colony. We must prepare. Arachnia's 8 eyes focused on him intently. Come. The elders must hear this. She led them through shortcuts only colony members knew, moving at a pace that had Hagrid puffing with exertion. Within 20 minutes, they reached the colony's central hollow, a vast space where massive webs stretched between ancient trees, creating a complex, multi-level structure that housed hundreds of Acromantulas. Aragog and Mozag waited at the hollow center, their enormous forms immediately recognizable. Despite their great age, both patriarchs remained imposing, car-sized bodies supported by legs that spanned over 15 feet when extended. Young one, Aragog greeted Harry in clicking speech. Your visit comes earlier than expected, with the taste of fear. Harry dropped to a crouch before the patriarch, a gesture of respect in colony custom, before rising to explain the threat in rapid clicks and hisses. Hagrid, understanding only bits of the conversation, added what he knew about Umbridge and Ministry protocols. When they finished, a tense silence fell over the gathered spiders. Then Mozag spoke, her clicks measured and deliberate. We have lived in this forest for 50 years, she said. We have taken only the territory we need, hunted only to survive. Now they come to exterminate us for existing. I won't let that happen, Harry promised fiercely. How will you stop them? Aragog asked. They come with authority, with numbers, with wizard magic designed to kill our kind. We fight, clicked a younger Acromantula, one of Aragog and Mozag's countless children. Others clicked in agreement, legs shifting restlessly. No, Harry said firmly. Fighting plays into their hands, proves their claim that you're mindless killers. What then? Mozag asked. Flee. There is nowhere for a colony our size to relocate without detection. Harry paced in a tight circle, mind racing. We need to make it politically impossible for them to attack. Show the wizarding world that Acromantulas aren't the monsters they think. Most humans see only our fangs, our size, Aragog clicked skeptically. They do not look for intelligence or culture. Then we make them look, Harry insisted. We show them who you really are. An idea began to form, radical, risky, but potentially powerful enough to shift perceptions. He outlined it quickly to the colony elders, watching their reactions carefully. Dangerous, Mozag clicked when he finished. For us and for you, young one. The ministry would not forgive such defiance. The colony raised me, Harry replied simply. I won't abandon you now. Aragog's massive form shifted as he considered. The plan has merit, but requires perfect timing and cooperation from wizards who fear us. I have friends, Harry assured him. And Dumbledore will help. After further discussion, a modified plan was agreed upon. Hagrid would return to the castle immediately to brief Dumbledore, while Harry remained with the colony to prepare. The first phase needed to be ready by Sunday, just ahead of Umbridge's Monday deadline. As the meeting broke up, Arachnia pulled Harry aside. Your magic has grown since your last visit, she observed. I feel it through the web. Harry nodded. Hogwarts has taught me different ways to channel it. But colony magic is still stronger, especially here in the forest. Show me, she requested, 8 eyes gleaming with curiosity. Harry smiled and closed his eyes, centering himself as Mozag had taught him years ago. He reached out with his senses, feeling the intricate web of life surrounding them, trees, plants, insects, the Acromantulas themselves, all connected by threads of magical energy. Drawing on both his colony training and Hogwarts education, he extended his hands and pushed his magic outward in a controlled wave. The web strands connecting nearby trees began to glow visibly, illuminating the hollow with silvery light. Simultaneously, vines and flowers grew upward around them, weaving themselves into the existing web structure to create an integrated lattice of plant and silk. Beautiful, Arachnia clicked appreciatively. You truly are colony and wizard both. And I need both to save our family, Harry replied, letting the magic fade slowly. They spent the evening refining the plan and sending messengers to the centaur herds and other forest dwellers who might be affected by a ministry incursion. Harry used the communication silk to contact Hermione and Ron, updating them on developments. As night fell, the colony gathered for a communal meal, a ritual Harry had participated in since childhood. He ate the cooked food Hagrid had packed for him while the Acromantulas consumed freshly caught prey, their different diets no barrier to the shared ceremony. Afterward, Harry retreated to his old sleeping hollow in the ancient oak tree, now maintained by younger spiders in his absence. The familiar space, with its moss bedding and web hammock, felt more like home than his four-poster in Gryffindor Tower ever had. Vine, his emerald tree snake, emerged from his pack where she'd been napping during the journey. She slithered onto his chest, her scales gleaming in the bioluminescent light of the silk strands woven throughout the hollow. Home, she hissed contentedly. Smells right here. Yes, Harry agreed in Parseltongue. But it's in danger. We protect nest, Vine stated with serpentine simplicity. Bite enemies. Harry smiled despite the gravity of the situation. It'll take more than bites, but that's the right idea. He drifted off to sleep surrounded by the comforting sounds and scents of the colony, his dreams filled with web patterns and strategies. Morning brought renewed purpose. Harry spent hours with Aragog, Mozag, and the colony's senior members, mapping their territory and identifying vulnerable areas. By midday, they had established emergency evacuation routes for the youngest and eldest spiders if the worst should happen. We should move the egg sacs deeper, Mozag fretted, clicking anxiously as they examined the nursery area. Away from the eastern boundary. Agreed, Aragog clicked. And position sentries at all major approach points. But non-threatening ones, Harry emphasized. If ministry officials encounter aggressive spiders, they'll use it as justification to attack immediately. A sudden vibration through the web network alerted them to approaching visitors. Harry extended his senses along the threads, recognizing the familiar magical signatures immediately. Hagrid's returning, he announced. And he's brought Ron and Hermione. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Hagrid appeared at the hollow's edge with Harry's friends in tow. Hermione looked nervous but determined, clutching a bulging bag of books. Ron appeared slightly pale at the sight of so many giant spiders, but he squared his shoulders bravely. "Harry!" Hermione called, spotting him among a group of Acromantulas. "We've got news." The spiders parted to let Harry's friends approach, though many clicked curiously at the newcomers. This wasn't Ron and Hermione's first visit to the colony, but they were still adjusting to being surrounded by creatures most wizards considered nightmarishly dangerous. "Umbridge is mobilizing faster than expected," Hermione reported breathlessly. "Professor Dumbledore learned she's ordered a preliminary scouting team for tomorrow morning, bypassing the Monday deadline. She's not even following her own rules," Harry said angrily. "Gets worse," Ron added grimly. "Dad says she's brought in specialists from the Beast Division, the extermination unit, not the relocation team. They're not even pretending this is about regulation," Hermione said, indignation coloring her voice. "It's systematic elimination of undesirable creatures." Aragog clicked menacingly. "As we suspected. They come to slaughter, not to study." "Did Dumbledore approve our plan?" Harry asked. Hermione nodded, pulling a rolled parchment from her bag. "He signed this, official Hogwarts documentation designating the Acromantula colony as a protected magical ecosystem for educational and research purposes. It won't stop the ministry completely," Ron cautioned. "But it forces them to justify any action as educational necessity, not just creature control." "Perfect," Harry said, examining the document. "That gives us the legal foundation. Now for the public opinion piece." Hermione pulled more items from her seemingly bottomless bag, a camera, several prepared statements, and what appeared to be press credentials. Luna's father agreed to publish a special edition of the Quibbler focused on Acromantula conservation, she explained. "And I've contacted that reporter who did the piece on werewolf rights last year. She's sympathetic and has connections at the Daily Prophet." "Brilliant, Hermione," Harry said appreciatively. "We've also got these," Ron added, producing a stack of parchment. "Letters from care of magical creatures experts supporting colony preservation." Charlie helped get signatures from the Romanian Dragon Sanctuary staff. For the next few hours, they worked feverishly to implement their plan. Hermione took photographs documenting the colony's complex social structure and web architecture, while Ron helped draft statements emphasizing the Acromantula's intelligence and non-aggression toward wizards who respected their territory. Harry, meanwhile, worked with Aragog to prepare the most crucial element, direct evidence of the Acromantula's sentience and capacity for peaceful coexistence with humans. They selected 5 colony members, including Arachnia, who showed the greatest comfort with human presence. As evening approached, Hermione checked her watch anxiously. "We should head back soon. Luna's father needs these materials tonight to print tomorrow's edition." "Go," Harry urged. "Take everything back to Dumbledore. I'll stay here with the colony in case Umbridge moves early." "Are you sure?" Ron asked. "If they catch you helping the colony." "They won't," Harry said with quiet confidence. "The forest protects its own." After his friends departed with Hagrid, Harry turned his attention to reinforcing the colony's defenses. Not with weapons, but with magic, specifically, the unique combination of Acromantula web magic and his own wizarding abilities. Working with Mozag and several skilled web spinners, he created a network of early warning strands that would alert them to any intrusion. Then, drawing on what he'd learned in charms and defense against the dark arts, he added protective enchantments, not to harm intruders, but to confuse and misdirect them if necessary. "These will buy us time," he explained to Aragog. "If they come before we're ready." Night fell, and with it came increased tension throughout the colony. Young spiders were moved to the deepest, most protected chambers, while the more battle-ready positioned themselves strategically throughout the territory. Harry barely slept, instead spending hours meditating at the colony's heart, strengthening his connection to the web network. By dawn, he could sense every Acromantula in the colony, every strand of silk, every subtle vibration for nearly a mile in all directions. The warning came just after sunrise, a distinctive pattern of vibrations through the web network that indicated multiple humans approaching from the castle direction. Harry was instantly alert, sending his awareness along the threads to assess the threat. 8 wizards, he reported to Aragog and Mozag. Moving in formation. Ministry magical signatures. He frowned, concentrating harder. And Umbridge is with them. So soon. Mozag clicked anxiously. Your friends have not had time to publish their materials. She's moving faster than expected, Harry agreed grimly. We need to implement the contingency plan. The contingency was riskier, with lower odds of success, but they prepared for this possibility. Harry sent rapid communications through the web network, positioning colony members according to their rehearsed roles. I need to intercept them before they reach the hollow, he told Aragog. Delay them as long as possible. Be careful, young one, the patriarch clicked in concern. These humans come with killing intent. Harry nodded and darted through the web highways, moving with practiced speed through the canopy. Below him, Acromantulas moved silently into position, invisible to those who didn't know where to look. He reached the outer boundary just as the ministry team crossed it. From his perch in a massive oak, Harry observed them, a squad of grim-faced wizards in specialized protective gear, led by Umbridge herself. She wore practical field robes but maintained her prissy demeanor, directing the others with imperious gestures. Remember, she was saying in her girlish voice, these are XXXXX classified creatures. Show no hesitation. The cleansing must be thorough. Cleansing, one wizard muttered. Nasty business, this. Ministry orders, Dawlish, another replied. Can't have man-eaters this close to a school. Harry felt cold rage building at their casual discussion of slaughter, but forced himself to remain calm. Anger would only cloud his judgment when he needed perfect clarity. He waited until they were fully within the territory before making his move. Drawing his wand, he cast a simple but effective spell, Lumos Maxima. A blinding flash erupted above the ministry team, causing them to cry out in surprise and shield their eyes. In that moment of confusion, Harry dropped silently to the forest floor before them. I wouldn't go any further if I were you, he said calmly. The wizards raised their wands defensively, then faltered as they recognized him. Potter, one exclaimed. What are you doing here? Mr. Potter, Umbridge said, her voice honeyed but her eyes hard. How unexpected to find you in this particular section of forest, on this particular morning. Is it? Harry replied evenly. I spend most weekends in the forest. As you already knew. Umbridge's smile tightened. You're interfering with official ministry business. I suggest you return to the castle immediately. I'm afraid I can't do that, Harry said, standing his ground. Not when that business involves the illegal extermination of sentient magical beings. Illegal? Umbridge gave a tinkling laugh. I have full ministry authorization, signed by the minister himself. But not Hogwarts authorization, Harry countered. Which is required for any action on school grounds, including the forest. As I explained to Dumbledore, the emergency magical creature containment protocols supersede, only apply in cases of immediate public danger, Harry interrupted. Which doesn't exist here. Umbridge's face flushed with anger. How dare you presume to lecture me on ministry policy? You're nothing but a child with an unhealthy attachment to monsters. They're not monsters, Harry said firmly. They're a thriving, intelligent community that has lived peacefully in this forest for decades, harming no one who didn't threaten them first. Acromantulas. Peaceful. One of the wizards snorted in disbelief. They're predators, boy. Killers by nature. Like humans, then? Harry asked pointedly. Considering you've come here explicitly to kill. Umbridge stepped forward, her toad-like face contorted with rage. This is absurd. Dawlish, escort Mr. Potter back to the castle. The rest of you, continue as planned. I'm afraid that won't be possible, came a new voice as Dumbledore emerged from the trees behind them, accompanied by Professor McGonagall and, surprisingly, a thin man with a camera and notepad whom Harry didn't recognize. Dumbledore, Umbridge hissed. This is Ministry jurisdiction now. Is it? Dumbledore replied mildly. I don't recall surrendering Hogwarts authority over its grounds. He gestured to the thin man. Mr. Lovegood from the Quibbler was just interviewing me about educational innovations at Hogwarts when we heard there might be an unauthorized operation in our forest. Naturally, we came to investigate. The man, Luna's father, Harry realized, was scribbling frantically, his camera at the ready. This is a matter of public safety. Umbridge insisted. Indeed? Dumbledore raised his eyebrows. Perhaps we should examine the nature of this threat directly, then. He nodded to Harry, who raised his hand and sent a specific pattern of vibrations through the nearest web strand, the signal they'd arranged. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with deliberate slowness, Aragog emerged from the undergrowth. The massive patriarch moved with dignity, stopping at a non-threatening distance from the gathered humans. The Ministry wizards gasped, raising their wands, but Umbridge's eyes gleamed with vindication. There, she exclaimed. Proof of the infestation. This monster alone is larger than, my name, Aragog interrupted in perfectly clear English, is Aragog. And I wish to speak on behalf of my colony. The shock that rippled through the Ministry team was palpable. Acromantulas were known to be intelligent, but few wizards had ever heard one speak, and certainly not with such eloquence. Impressive parlor trick, Potter, Umbridge recovered quickly. Ventriloquism won't save these creatures. I assure you, Aragog clicked indignantly, no human controls my speech. Perhaps, Dumbledore suggested, we should allow Aragog to state his case. Mr. Lovegood is documenting this historic interaction, after all. Umbridge glanced at the journalist with barely concealed fury, clearly realizing she was being maneuvered into a public relations trap. Very well, she said tightly. Let the creature speak. It will change nothing. Aragog moved forward slightly, his massive form intimidating despite his careful control. My colony has lived in this forest for 50 years, since Hagrid saved me as a spiderling. We have maintained our territory, respected boundaries with centaurs and other forest dwellers, and avoided human contact except by mutual agreement. Your predators, one Ministry wizard objected. You hunt and kill. For food, as all predators must, Aragog acknowledged. But never humans who did not threaten us first. A convenient claim, Umbridge sniffed. But the classification system exists for a reason. XXXXX creatures are deemed incapable of peaceful coexistence with wizard kind. Perhaps the classification system is flawed, McGonagall suggested tartly. Based on fear rather than facts. And perhaps, Harry added, stepping forward, the best evidence against that classification is standing right here. He moved to Aragog's side, placing one hand on the Acromantula's hairy leg in a gesture of trust that made several Ministry wizards flinch. I lived with this colony for 2 years, Harry continued. They took me in, protected me, taught me. If Acromantulas were mindless killers, I wouldn't be alive to tell you this. You expect us to rewrite creature classification based on one unusual case? Umbridge demanded. The boy who lived special relationship with monsters hardly constitutes scientific evidence. Then perhaps this will, Dumbledore said calmly, producing the document Hermione had brought yesterday. Official designation of the Acromantula colony as a protected magical research ecosystem, signed by myself as headmaster and countersigned by 3 members of the Hogwarts Board of Governors. Research? Umbridge sputtered. Into what possible, interspecies magical communication, McGonagall supplied promptly. Web-based magic systems. Cooperative magical ecosystems. The educational potential is enormous. And all perfectly documented, Mr. Lovegood added cheerfully, snapping another photograph. The Quibbler special edition on revolutionary magical creature research at Hogwarts will feature this prominently. Umbridge looked trapped, her eyes darting between Dumbledore, the document, the journalist, and the increasingly uncertain members of her team. "This is preposterous," she finally managed. "The minister will not stand for, actually," came yet another voice as Arthur Weasley stepped into the clearing. "The minister sends his regrets." Harry felt a surge of hope at this unexpected reinforcement. Ron must have contacted his father immediately after leaving yesterday. "Arthur?" Umbridge said in confusion. "What are you doing here?" "Delivering an urgent update," Mr. Weasley replied, producing an official-looking scroll. "The Wizengamot Educational Oversight Committee has requested immediate review of any creature control operations affecting magical education facilities. All actions are suspended pending full hearings." "That's impossible," Umbridge snapped. "No such review was scheduled." "Emergency session," Mr. Weasley explained blandly. "Called by Madame Bones herself after receiving certain documentation regarding the educational value of magical creature preservation." Harry caught Dumbledore's eye and saw the headmaster's slight nod of acknowledgement. Clearly, their preparations had reached further than Harry realized. Umbridge snatched the scroll, reading it with increasing agitation. This is Ministry procedure," Mr. Weasley finished for her. "As you're always so keen to remind us, Dolores, proper channels must be followed." The standoff continued for several tense moments as Umbridge visibly calculated her options. Finally, with obvious reluctance, she lowered the scroll. "This isn't over," she said coldly. "A review merely delays the inevitable. When the full facts are presented, by all means," Dumbledore interrupted pleasantly, "let all facts be presented. Including testimony from the colony itself." "Colony testimony?" Mr. Lovegood perked up even further. "First ever Acromantula testimonials. Exclusive to the Quibbler." Umbridge's face contorted with fury, but she recognized defeat, at least for now. "We're leaving," she snapped at her team. "Dawlish, document everything for the official record." As the ministry group retreated, Harry maintained his position beside Aragog, unwilling to relax until they were truly gone. Only when they disappeared from both sight and his web sense did he exhale in relief. "That was too close," he murmured to Aragog. "But effective," the patriarch clicked appreciatively. "Your plan worked, young one." "For now," Harry cautioned. "Umbridge won't give up easily." "Indeed not," Dumbledore agreed, approaching them. "But we've bought valuable time and shifted the battleground from force to politics, where she is far less likely to succeed." "The photographs and interviews from yesterday?" Harry asked anxiously. "Already being prepared for publication," Mr. Weasley assured him. Ron and Hermione worked through the night with Fred and George to distribute materials to sympathetic journalists. "And Hagrid has been giving quite compelling interviews about his 50-year friendship with Aragog," McGonagall added with the ghost of a smile. "Quite moving, actually." Mr. Lovegood stepped forward tentatively. That is, would it be possible to arrange a more formal interview with members of the colony? A true cultural exchange would be unprecedented." Aragog's pincers clicked thoughtfully. "The colony would consider it. Under controlled conditions, with Harry present." "Marvelous!" Mr. Lovegood exclaimed, scribbling excitedly. Over the next hours, the forest clearing became an impromptu press conference as additional journalists arrived, summoned by Dumbledore's network once the immediate threat was neutralized. Aragog, showing remarkable patience, answered questions about colony life, Acromantula society, and their peaceful coexistence with other forest dwellers. Harry remained by his side, translating the more complex clicking language when necessary and helping manage the humans' instinctive fear reactions. By midday, even Mozag had joined them, bringing several younger Acromantulas including Arachnia to demonstrate family structures. "You've done something extraordinary here," Harry," Dumbledore said quietly as they watched a photographer cautiously directing Arachnia to pose beside a web structure. "Few wizards would have attempted to bridge these worlds." "I didn't have a choice," Harry replied. "They're my family." "We always have choices," Dumbledore corrected gently. "You chose compassion over fear, understanding over prejudice. That is remarkable at any age, but especially for someone so young." Harry shrugged uncomfortably. "I just did what felt right." The day continued with a steady stream of visitors, journalists, ministry officials from more progressive departments, even a few curious Hogwarts professors who'd heard about the confrontation. By evening, what had begun as a desperate defense had transformed into something approaching a cultural exchange. As the visitors finally departed, Harry sat with Aragog and Mozag at the colony's heart, watching younger spiders reconstruct web sections disrupted by the day's activities. "The danger isn't past," Harry cautioned. "Umbridge will try again, through different channels." "But we are no longer invisible," Mozag clicked thoughtfully. "We have emerged from shadow into human awareness. That changes the web of possibilities." "The colony has survived many threats," Aragog added. "We will adapt to this new reality, as we have always adapted." "And I'll help," Harry promised. "No matter what." The next morning, Harry reluctantly prepared to return to the castle. Classes would resume tomorrow, and despite everything, he was still a student with responsibilities. "I'll visit again as soon as I can," he told Arachnia as she accompanied him to the forest boundary. "And I'll keep the communication silk with me always." "The colony will miss you," she clicked, touching his shoulder gently with one leg. "I will miss you." "I'm never really gone," Harry replied, placing his hand on the nearest web strand and sending a pulse of magic through it, his unique magical signature, recognizable to any colony member. "I'm part of the web now, remember?" As he emerged from the forest edge, he found Ron and Hermione waiting for him, clutching copies of that morning's newspapers. The Daily Prophet's headline read, "Boy WHO Live Defends Forbidden Forest Creatures, Ministry Operation Halted Amid Controversy." The Quibbler was even more dramatic, "Acromantulas Speak, Exclusive Interview with Forbidden Forest Colony Reveals Centuries of Misunderstanding." "It's working," Hermione said excitedly. "Public opinion is shifting already. The Prophet's Letters section is flooded with people questioning the creature classification system." "And look at this," Ron added, pointing to a smaller article. "Wisengamot announces comprehensive review of magical creature regulations." "Dad says Umbridge is furious, she's been sidelined from the committee entirely." Harry felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "So the colony is safe?" "For now," Hermione cautioned. "This is just the beginning of a longer process. But the immediate threat is gone, and there's momentum for real change." As they walked back to the castle, Harry felt the comforting weight of the communication silk in his pocket and the familiar presence of vine curled around his wrist. Behind him lay the forest and colony, ahead, Hogwarts with its own kind of family. Two worlds, once separate in his life, now connected through him. It wouldn't be easy maintaining that bridge, there would be more Umbridges, more threats, more misunderstandings to overcome. But for the first time, Harry felt truly confident in his unique position between those worlds. He wasn't just the boy who lived anymore. He was colony and wizard both, and that dual identity, once a source of confusion, had become his greatest strength. "You know," Ron said as they climbed the castle steps, "I never thought I'd say this, but those giant spiders of yours aren't half bad. Still terrifying, mind you, but impressive." Harry laughed. "High praise from a Weasley. I'll tell Aragog you said so." "Please don't," Ron groaned. "I've got a reputation to maintain." Hermione rolled her eyes at both of them. Boys. Always worried about looking tough. As they entered the great hall for dinner, students turned to stare at Harry, some with awe, others with new wariness. News of his defense of the Acromantulas had clearly spread rapidly. Harry ignored the stares, taking his usual seat at the Gryffindor table. The challenges ahead, both personal and political, would require all his determination and unique abilities. But for now, he was content to exist in both his worlds, a bridge between different kinds of magic, different ways of being. And as he felt the faint vibration of the communication silk in his pocket, a message from the colony, a reminder of connection, Harry Potter smiled. The boy in the web had found his place at last. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.